Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. The Remington podcast is live. A beautiful Sunday afternoon, at least here in the Midwest. We finally turned the quarter, ladies and gentlemen, on the brutal winter. Maybe I don't know if this is a break or if this is actually spring. What did the groundhog say, people? I didn't check in this year when the groundhog actually showed the shadow, but I guess that was a couple weeks. I don't even know how many weeks like the groundhog says winter is going to go on for. So is this like now the extended? We're outside of the groundhog's warning period. I'm not even sure, chat. But regardless. It is cooking outside today. Nice. The sun is shining and the sports world is cooking. And we finally got a little bit of a break as well, too, from the NBA action and from all the news. And we had like the Grammys in there and stuff. We can finally start to count down the best players in the NFL. I've been waiting to do this. Sit down, figure out the player rankings, figure out where we stand with some of these guys and some of these different positional groupings for the updated player rankings after this season. And don't worry, we'll definitely get into that. We've got a lot of rankings, a lot of guys. It's just gonna be, if you guys want an episode, a video of just listing a bunch of dudes, like Nick, make no mistake, this is gonna be the episode for you guys right here. It's gonna be a lot of names to go through, but this is the fun of ranking NFL players. It's like that post that said guys can just spend all day just naming different players. And not even like talk. Geez, sorry. Am I just gonna be ripping burps into the mic here? I guess I am. But you don't even have to like talk about the guys. You just name a guy. And you're like, yeah, that guy. Oh yeah, that guy. Oh yeah, that guy. So we could just we could probably just do a whole episode of rankings of just being like, oh yeah, number one quarterback, that guy. Number two quarterback, that guy. And make no mistake, it'd be one of the best episodes. Ranking episodes are always so much fun. But we'll get into it, of course. But we've got to start here, chat. I'm worked up. I'm passionate about something. Pause right off the top. And it's off of one of the latest messages that Sam sent me. One of the latest DMs. It was... Let me pull this back up here, chat. Yeah, it's this post. It says, when the music ain't musicking because you've just... okay, geez, chat, let me start over. When the music ain't musicking because you've your music too much. So basically, you've just overplayed all your songs and you feel like you've got nothing in your rotation to go to that is fresh, is hitting different, is just that I don't even know what the proper term is, but that hit of just getting a new song and a new sound, new bars that you like, new beat drop, whatever it is, chat, just that newness for finding music. You need to constantly... Yeah, it's like an addiction, chat. I guess you just need to be supplying it with, constantly new releases. And this can happen, I guess, a little bit maybe at the beginning of the year. At least it did happen last year as well, too, because if you remember, at least from, the hip-hop standpoint and some of the major releases, the year really started to heat up toward the end of last year. And, we even got kind of split as well, too, between, like, the major releases and then, critical releases versus commercial successes and then kind of what was being dropped in the year versus what was being dropped in the Grammy window. Like, a lot of the biggest albums that we were talking about in 2024, just in terms of a commercial standpoint, weren't necessarily even in the mix for this upcoming awards cycle. And, it allowed it to not necessarily allowed, not that the albums, got nominated and won were able to do that because of those albums that were not there. But, it was able to go in a little bit of a different direction with some of the albums. And they did land ultimately with a lot of commercial successes as well, too. Like, just in relative terms of the year, like the Eminem one was great. J. Cole still debuted at number 2. And what else was on? Of course, Doechii won, but what were the other ones? Of course, Future and Metro, big commercial success. And then Common, you got to give respect. So, if Tyler and Kendrick had dropped a little bit sooner, is Common, like, out of the mix now? Maybe Cole's the one out of the mix. I don't know why, we're just assuming our guys just locked into a spot like that. But that's our biased fandom that shows sometimes, chat. You just start booting Common out of the Grammys before you boot J. Cole out. But we corrected ourselves. Don't worry, Common. Your spot's in there. We get it. The auditorium is a great bump. And on a day like this, honestly, I can't believe I've been bumping the auditorium today as well, too. This is just beautiful Sunday, windows down, relaxed, vibing, especially with, some of that chill Pete Rock. There's the soulful samples, some gospel stuff going on there. Like, it really fits the vibe for the Lord's Day, chat. It really is like a bless up album. I feel like you could, you're gonna bless up if you listen to that one. So, but to go back to the new music thing, when the music ain't musicking, I get it. Like I'm saying, I've gotten into parts with like I guess certain, just songs in general, but maybe more so like certain types of songs that you're listening to, where you're like, maybe again in driving around weather, you're really listening to like those banger shake the speaker car songs. Do you get to a point where you're like, okay, am I playing enough of these? If it's, the chill vibes, the late night vibes, or is there something that is hitting the same way that, it's just like lifting you up into those, whatever that music can get you into that different element, like that late night cruising vibe. It's not really getting that same thing, but I get that with the new music. The problem is, chat, we haven't been making music for like a couple of years now. I don't know if you guys know this, but there is quite a library of music to go back and listen to. And you say, well, yeah, I've listened to all the Drake songs. I'm not even listening to Drake anymore. Kendrick only has 6 albums. Like, I feel like I'm overplaying, and I don't know how you could overplay Kendrick. I feel like now with the albums getting resurfaced back into the top of the Billboard as well too, and Kendrick was our #1 artist last year, but with the conversation around the albums, and make no mistake, we're definitely when we're listening to music, like we're more in with the beats, and we're vibing along, we're having a good time. So some of the lyrical stuff definitely right over our head, chat. We're just missing it half the time. It is what it is. But with the conversation being picked back up with a lot of these past Kendrick projects, I'm re-listening to them and just getting more like the lyrical content and what he's going for, and you're still learning from those. So it'd be hard to overplay the Kendrick songs. But again, like if you feel like there's and whatever new artists. This post had like 400, almost 500,000 likes. So like, what artists are they saying here, Chad? Not to put anybody on blast, but is anybody naming anybody specific? A lot of people saying, switching. Is it podcast era, chat? I get that for sure. I get that. I feel like, do I put those in kind of? They're not the same thing. They're very different, but. It's something in the background anyways. And the Spotify rap number, it all goes in the same minutes listened. But, okay, Ken Carson. Somebody's saying, they're maybe a little overplaying Ken Carson in their rotation. That's not a bad thing either. Like, that means Ken Carson up until this point has been, they've just been junking the music. Ken Carson, you love it. He's the new guy on the block. And, he's made their way into a lot of the people's playlists. But, sorry, Ken Carson. I guess that's just the one guy that felt like he needed to name you in here. Is this Playboy Carti, is this helping him or hurting him? Because nobody's overplaying his new music. Because make no mistake, there's no new music from Playboy Carti. But yeah, everybody's just kind of agreeing, but nobody is. Oh, shout out our guy Juice. Somebody said not with Lucky or not with Juice. Is this this might be a Rem and Sam fan right here. Sam's a big Lucky fan, of course. Juice WRLD's our guy from back in the day, so this guy might be tuned in, chat. Shout out. But again, Boss Man D-Lo, I don't know what you guys feel like you're overplaying out there, but there is years and years and decades worth of music to go listen to. If you feel like you're overplaying music from this era, just take a step backwards. Even, we're talking Drake and J. Cole and, Kendrick just going back into their old libraries, like, Travis Scott just got the mixtape on DSPs from back in the day, Days Before Rodeo's on there now. J. Cole just put all of his old mixtapes on DSPs, so I know, a lot of J. Cole fans are probably bumping those in the rotation a lot of times, but especially for a guy like me who, that has been, I'm not going to lie, like for J. Cole, that's been a big saver as a rotation player for me because, post Beef Chat, like we're saying, the numbers are showing it's been a lot of Kendrick in the rotation. But at least to have that new Cole on streaming and just new songs to have in the mix, it's like, okay, I'm not going to not play these. And these are, of course, some of the most beloved songs and quality as well, too. You can argue that the totality of those projects and just the totality of that run, like that mixtape run might be better. And, we're talking about all-time mixtape versus all-time album runs, like, tomato, potato, whatever. But, that mixtape run might have even been better as well, too. So now it's like we get peak J. Cole on streamings. There's like new revivals there, but if we did like a Spotify rap through the first couple of months, I feel like a lot of my artists, and it's been really gearing this way the last couple of years, chat, but I feel like the full commitment to just the 90s, the early 2000s is really just in full effect this year, chat. Honestly, like T.I. might be my #1 rapper right now, or maybe my #1 obviously artist in general. And let's see, like, what is the T.I. monthly? He might be doubled. I'm not gonna doubt T.I. He's gonna be 10 million. Yeah, 12 million. a month. So that puts him outside the top 500. On the Spotify pages, they'll give you the exact ranking if you're, in that top 500. But 12 mil, of course, the strength of T.I.'s catalog is still carrying him as like a pretty popular artist. I mean, 12 mil, I guess we're not going to start naming names of other artists. But, there's artists actively right now that we would say are amongst the best in the game that, may not quite be. And then the streaming is everything. Just to, again, it's just like, what are we listening to in the rotation? I just like, are we going back to this stuff quite enough, Chad? And again, like Pac and Big and a lot of these guys that, this is basic stuff in the rotation. Like 50, like this is not groundbreaking stuff to be like, hey, like, are we actually revisiting the 50 Cent catalog in a real way? But if you look at a lot of those streaming numbers as well, too, like it would be the strength of a couple of songs just being replayed a lot. And I think Get Rich Die Trying that's obviously a bad example, chat, because that's probably still like a top 20 most streamed album, and people are still listening to that album a ton. But again, like In the Club that's gonna be on its way to 2 billion streams. You got a couple. Again, everybody's just streaming that whole album in general. But you got the Massacre in there. You've got Curtis. There's other great. And it's you got to kind of remove yourself as well too from the moments and where we're at with. What, like, oh, Curtis, is it like the album that went head to head with Pause, was competing with Graduation, and Graduation obviously ascends as this all-time groundbreaking album, and Kanye, of course, was, in his bag already at this point. Like, he had a discography of great production under his belt at that point, but, continued to rise up commercial successful wise, and then, crossing over into the pop realms with the tracks on that album as well too. Like, the moment it gets lost a little bit, and it's like, well, we can still go back and bump these songs, but then that all plays into the how you're gonna filter that stuff into your rotation. So maybe a guy like me where I'm not necessarily like in the moment, I wasn't as a little kid, you're just not as quite as locked in on the, again, at least for me, like as locked in on the Kanye 50 Cent beef. So like whatever your emotional attachment and your emotional arc was to 50 Cent at the time, and how the rotation got affected with these new and up and coming artists, like, obviously I just wasn't a part of that. So, I just see these songs as individual songs. You go back and listen to the rotation, but even again, you go, okay, these are hip hop guys. I mean, we could even just start, of course, naming all kinds of underground guys from now till whenever. Like, we could go everywhere from Big L to Benny the Butcher, and that's just one letter of the alphabet, chat. We just, that's just Big L, Benny. Like, we're not even diversifying there. So, there's all like Freddie Gibbs. Like, are you guys just listening to Freddie Gibbs enough? Like, there's so many guys that you could listen to and diversify the rotation. I feel like also just the commitment to finding new music is maybe not as strong as it used to be. Where, and then I guess again we'd have to put ourselves back in the time of. We can't necessarily speak for the past generation, but at least when you're forced to find new music, like when you have to go out and search for music as the only way to listen to music, maybe you're just going to be more likely to stumble across new music. But when you can get a playlist set of, 2 to 3 to 4 hours, and you get your couple of guys that you listen to, and you get even more so, like, where's the 6 or 7 songs that you get to junk it in that rotation, then it gets pretty easy to get settled in and to just get listening, and then to go all of a sudden like, wait a second, this is actually, I'm not listening to, in my music library is not like quite as big at pause and diverse as maybe I thought it was. But you just got to make sure, it's like, are we listening to full albums? Are we going through and revisiting projects enough? Are we going out to the other artists and branching out? And again, even going back in time even more, like I'm saying, we're still talking hip hop going back to 90s hip hop, 80s, we can even talk 80s hip hop. Like, are people bumping Public Enemy nowadays, like as a real rotation? I get like the way that sounds evolve and stuff too, but these things are classic for a reason. And you still listen to them and go, okay, is this a sound of, you can go, okay, this sounds like an era, but this, whatever sound that they were producing in this era is still a great sound to go back and listen to. And that's the great thing about music too, is that it evolves, and that you can go back into these decades and you can go, there is different types of music. Like, I mean, even today, chat, like I've basically just been bumping like 70s soul music and 50s music all day. And, maybe and that maybe it's because I've been listening to a lot of hip hop, and it's do we need a little bit of a cleanse from that type of stuff? But again, if you're going, well, the music is not musicking, and I'm getting sick of music, I get it. If you got to go listen or go watch a movie or go take a walk or something, I'm not saying hey, force and wear the earbuds and listen to the songs. I'm just saying like we're actually out on music in that kind of a way. There's so much music to listen to and so much types of music to listen to, and again, you can pick from all these eras. And the fact that we're not making soul music in the same way, and it's not in the mainstream as a new music in the same, and artists in general, or again the way that music evolves, but you have all these different types of things to go back and to visit and to make sure that you're consuming. And by the time you like are junking a bunch of soul music, and by the time you you get that stuff in the rotation for a day, a couple hours, a morning at the gym, you're like, I'm ready to go back into my rotation. I'm feeling those songs again that I always love listening to. And maybe the hip hop soul thing's a different connection because it still is in kind of the same vein. Like we're not branching out there too much, chat. But again, even within like what you would consider like the reaches of hip hop, you've got all these different variations of rap and trap and soul and all this. Then you start getting into R&B, like we're saying, and then you go back even farther to the soul variations and Motown and different stuff. And there's endless possibilities, chat. So it's like, yeah, I get that if you're going to listen to the same couple of guys and the same couple of projects and the same couple of songs, like it's going to be you're probably going to get a little sick of it. I would definitely relate to that. I mean, I guess that's what I'm saying earlier as well too, like going backwards with the music. Like I guess I'm not saying I'm sick of the guys that I grew up listening to, but the top 5 of my Spotify artists for like as long as I've had Spotify has always been, the big 3 of the 2010s with Kendrick, Cole, and Drake, and then the other, kind of main guys from the early 2000s and the, bigger radio players from back in the day where, Jay-Z and Kanye as well too have always been like a top 5. Like, again, we're hitting the basic corners here. These are the massive artists of the time, but I just felt like, hey, we need to get a different top 5. We need to just branch out a little bit and diversify the sound, diversify the rotation a little bit. And I'm, having a great time discovering new music and playing new songs and having new favorite songs. And it's a great time, Chad. Music can just continue to play. So if you're getting sick of music, you're probably, again, obviously getting sick of certain songs, but make sure the commitment to finding new music is there. If you put in the effort, it is obviously a little bit easier than maybe it's I don't know why it seems like such an intimidating task to be like, and I still find it myself sometimes with newer albums with maybe guys that I haven't quite fully, newer guys that I haven't fully bought into, or again, older guys that I just haven't had the connection with, where it's like, oh, now I got to sit down and listen to a full project from this guy. But the more that you do it and the more that you commit, and yeah, of course there's going to be misses, but you know what, chat? You know what you can do in the modern era as well? If you're not feeling a song on an album, you can skip it. You can move it to the next one. You can cruise through an album pretty quickly. And because that's the thing with music as well. Like if you're really being picky about it, you can kind of tell with a song right away. And like we're saying, there are certain songs that will age over time. You can go back to and go, oh yeah, I'm feeling this more than maybe I was back in the day. But you can go through that album and immediately just tell like what songs are going to be rotation players for you, what songs what songs you're even going to consider. You're like, ooh, I was kind of maybe vibing with that one, but I don't know if I'm there yet. I don't know, can I admit that to myself? I don't know if I'm totally in on this song, like whatever it may be, chat. But, that you can discover music harsh, with the harsh sort of comb through effect. You can really take the time to let it age and make sure I'm going to commit and listen to this album a couple of times and see what songs really, stick out or whatever it may be. But it's just that commitment to being like, hey, like I'm going to at least try to sit down, find some new music, play some albums, get the rotation going, diversify the sound, go back a little bit, like are we going through the Whitney Houston catalog, chat? Like, I mean, like these are basic checkpoints that it's like, are we getting these players in the rotation in a real way? I get you go, oh yeah, of course everybody loves, like who doesn't love Whitney Houston? Who doesn't know the iconic songs? If I Want to Dance with Somebody pops on, like who's not going to have a good time singing that if why am I blanking on the song from the Bodyguard, chat? I feel I just watched the Bodyguard as well too. But you know, if the Bodyguard is just like on in a Walmart somewhere, is that a movie that would be on in like a Walmart TV? I don't know. But for some reason, if they get the copyrights to that, whatever, I don't know if they'd be playing the scenes where that song is on it either, chat. But you know, if you just like if you hear that song pop on, you're never gonna have a good time listening to that song. But are you actually queuing these people up? Are you playing these people? Are these people in the rotation? These are all-time people, and even with my like the whole, you know, there's 70s and 80s rock and roll and stuff that, you know, we haven't even branched out into as well too. Like there's a couple of, you know, rock albums that I've listened to in the past year, basic like all time, like, you know, Appetite for Destruction, Guns N' Roses. You're like, wait a second, are you just not like first time listens through, but it's like, you know, you're gonna commit, you're gonna sit down, you're gonna listen to the whole thing. This may not be a genre or a type that you're listening to. And again, it's not a struggle to get through like a Guns N' Roses album. Like this is the basic entry points to those type of genres. But I'm just saying, like, you can go in these directions if you're like, oh, I'm the hip hop guy that only listens to hip hop. It's like, well, here's the palate cleanser. Here's the different thing that, again, there's songs on here that you know that like, look at the streams. Everybody loves this song. They play these songs at stadiums. You have a good time bumping these songs at stadiums when they pop on, and you're in the car driving, and it's always a great time to listen to this music. And yeah, maybe it's not going to be a constant playlist shuffle thing. Maybe it's not going to be a constant go-to in the top 100 of your Spotify playlist at the end of the day, but is it in there? And again, it's not like, you know, you have to be listening to music 24/7, chat. I'm just saying, don't feel like, if you ever get to a place where you're like, music isn't hitting the same way, then something is wrong, chat, because that should never happen. Like, music is always great, and it's whatever form it may be, and just, you know, branch out a little bit, get the variety in there, get the different artists, the different genres. And that was something as well too that we heard in Andre 3K say in an interview. Was it on The Shop? It might have been on The Shop. I don't remember, but it was an Andre 3K interview where he was talking about how he just, you know, the amount of hip hop he listens to versus other genres, and the importance of listening to other genres, and how that was influential into his creative process as well too. And you know, you look at the Outkast discography and the sounds of Andre 3000's career, and it's like, you know, that's one of the most diverse sounding catalogs that anybody in any group has ever, you know, produced and put out there. So, you know, there is value in just all of these different things and all of these different sources, and again, all of these different eras, chat, all of this different stuff, you know, 50s, I don't know, 30s, 40s. When was Judy Garland, chat? I was, you know, had a couple of Judy Garland songs pop on as well today too. Like, is that go back to the, I know Wizard of Oz was 30s, but I feel like the music career would have really ascended after that. So her music career is probably more like 40s and then into the, you know, 50s. Again, I'm not exactly sure what the full Judy Garland timeline is there, but, you know, shout out, she's a legend. So again, it's like, is Judy Garland going to be a top 5 artist in the Spotify this year? Probably not, you know, hot take, probably not going to happen. But is it something that on a chill Sunday when you're like, hey, you know what? It's been a week of listening to this stuff at the gym and, you know, just in the background throughout the day. Like, you know, it's Sundays, it's feeling good. We need to chill out. We need a different vibe. We're feeling just something a little bit, you know, new. Again, like shout out to T.I., but it's like, you know, we need at least one day off from the T.I. album before we just restart the full cycle of just playing that every day of the week into next week. But, because it's going to happen, chat. I can't stop listening to shout out T.I. right now. But it is what it is. It just is what it is. I guess, do I have to say pause? I don't know. But, yeah, don't feel like the music ever needs to not hit you. I feel it's like, you know, I feel bad for our guy Sam. He's getting, you know, a little sick of his Yeet over there. Poor Yeet as well. But, you know, shout out, Yeet's had a great run. It's not like he hasn't been a legend in the game for the time that he's been out there. But, you know, do we need to start sending Sam a couple of Little Debbie Taylor songs? I don't know. I guess her name's not Little Debbie Taylor, chat. But, you know, do we need to start, maybe we need to re-update the playlist with like some older music, get IT on that, chat. We'll see. What's the playlist we got going right now? Because I know IT had like a Super Bowl halftime version of the playlist. So if you guys aren't following our playlist on Spotify, we do have one out there. Though I think that maybe some of the songs on this... welcome to the Spotify, chat. Shout out to AFV gang. Best pod in existence. It is what it is. But let me see if I can find it over here, chat. in the library real quick. What are we looking at? Oh, no, we've got an update to it, chat. I thought they had a Kendrick halftime version, like a Super Bowl halftime version, which I believe they did. So, for those of you that caught that version of the playlist, shout out. But let's see what we got going right now. We got a Drewski All-Star playlist. All-Star Celebrity Game playlist. Okay, yeah, of course we got Kendrick, GNX on here. Pop Smoke, Glorilla, Jid, Denzel Curry. Some Pac chat. Schoolboy Q, Jay-Z, Doechii, Cameron, Big X, 50 Cent. I mean, look at this chat. Different artists every time. Tyler, Dr. Dre from all eras. ASAP, Nipsey, Corday. D, we got a little DJ Khaled in here. DaBaby. The Game, Freddie Gibbs, Future. Another Corday. Benny the Butcher. 2 Benny the Butcher mentions, chat. Right off the top of the pod. Shout out. The Jid feature on Fuel goes crazy. Pusha T. Beyonce. A little more Doechii, a little more Kendrick, some Joey, some Rhapsody, Mac Miller, Jack Harlow, Lil Sims. I mean, look at this chat. If you guys are struggling with music suggestions and new music, follow the Drewski playlist over at the Rem and Sam. I think the links are in the bio. The Spotify playlist, of course, you guys can just search up as well, too, and see what's going on with that. But maybe we'll update that, because again, it is hip-hop, so maybe if it's just the sound that you guys are listening to and you're like, we need to diversify the sound as well, maybe we'll go a little more R&B, some soul, try to go back into like 90s, maybe a little 70s through 90s version of the playlist. We'll see what we get. It's probably just going to end up being 50s and 60s. I know my taste. I'm just like an old man, chat. I just end up listening. Like we're saying, you just throw this old music on. It is what it is. And I enjoy it. But again, I enjoy the difference in the sounds. Like that actually is interesting to me, that it's like this was the sound of this decade and this was the sound of this decade. And it's like, oh yeah, this is the sound that we're gearing toward now. And of course, how it's shifting as well too, and how Kendrick and the West Coast seem to be, at least, how it's popular. We'll see how the game continues to shift around it as well too. Not saying that it's not going to be influential. We'll see how, influential it is and how many different areas of the game that it, impacts. But we see even that sound as the popular sound right now versus, like, I know, some sexy songs for you didn't hit the same way it had before, but, a version of that sound was popular back. Like, there are some Views aesthetics, of course, in that album. So it's not like, Views is not, we know that that's one of the, great albums of the 2010s, and an album that continues to age really well, Chad. I almost wanted to say that that's, get a super hot take and say that's my favorite Drake album, but the connection to some of those OG Drake projects, it's just like the starting point is too strong, Chad. But, it's like that sound at one point was cool for a decade and at a time, and now we're in this sound. So it's like, hey, we can go back to a time and hear this. And, the way that the 80s rap is, how funky it is and how sort of chaotic a lot of the beats and drums and stuff are. It's, that's fun to listen to. Like, Public Enemy has been another really strong rotation player for me this year, chat. Just the sound of, like that early Ice Cube album as well too. Just a lot of that early Bomb Squad production I love listening to that, chat. It's really great. But again, it's just all these different eras and all these different sounds, and you just endless music to dig into and endless ways to mix up the rotation and continue to find fresh sounds. And again, like we're saying, we can get stuck even in our rotation with these guys. Like, is this our, certain 80s guy that we just always listen to? Like, we can, continue to branch out and find guys within those own decades ourselves. But there's just so much music out there to discover, Chad. It's not like music. It's not like if you're listening to music and you're like, I've listened to all the music that I need more new music. It's like, well, yes, of course, we're always going to need new music to drop and the game to be pushed forward and the evolution and, just new artists and new, we want to have new music, Chad. It is what it is. But there can be new music to you, that you haven't found yet, and new artists that are great. When was the last time you guys were bumping Thug Motivation? Are we actually talking about these guys that we love? Or are we actually listening to them? What do the numbers say, chat? What do your rotations say? I mean, your TikTok comments are saying that you're getting sick of the guys that you're listening to. So go back to these guys, timeless classics, all-time stuff, and just go through that. I mean, I know that like these critical outlets that put together these album lists, like they get criticized for the Billboard top 200 albums of all hip hop albums of all time lists. Like you can go through the rankings and go, oh yeah, this is not perfect in all these different ways. But guess what? Like if you want to mix up the rotation, boom, there's 200 great hip hop albums to go through right there. Like maybe you're not going to just all the time start at album 1 and bump it start to finish. You're not going to binge all those albums like a season maybe, but there's at least a starting point to go, hey, let's pick out some albums from here, from this guy, and go back through this project and see what songs I'm missing. What songs do I need to add into my playlist in a real way? Because there's going to be songs, chat. There's going to be things that you find, and there's going to be things that you discover. And there's songs that, they can be popular today. They can be bumped and listened to just as much today as they were back in the day. And you see even with TikTok as well, too, like certain old songs can pop back up in the culture and be massive songs. What was that song from Stranger Things that like was number 1 on the charts for a while and everybody was listening to it, and that song was dropped in the 80s, and it's just this timeless iconic song that I can't remember the name of right now, chat. Was it Kate Bush was the artist, I think? Running through the hills, or so, are we running through the hills, running through the forest? Speaking of overplayed, chat, can imagine a song from the 80s that one actually got a little bit overplayed, but maybe it was like a Stranger Things thing as well too. It's just like, okay, we get it, Stranger Things people, it's the greatest show of all time. People really really ride hard for that show. Pause. And it's a great show, but is it on the list? Like, what's the list of things that are definitely not overhyped is not the right word, but it's like, what are the strongest fandoms for things that aren't quite the greatest, but it's like they have the, if we did like the fandom versus the actual quality rankings, like what would be the biggest differences in sort of the rankings versus those groups? And not that the Stranger Things fandom versus, not the quality ranking be way down, obviously. That would be, the Stranger Things TV fandom could be like top 5 for TV show fandoms. It's pretty strong. All of the prestige TV shows, like the people that love those shows really like Mad Men and Breaking Bad and The Wire and Sopranos. I mean, just listen to a Ringer pod chat. Like, I'm gonna be bringing up the Sopranos at least once a week on any of the pods, at any point. But just the way that people defend Stranger Things is a great show, and maybe the early seasons as well too. Like maybe the fact that the couple of the later seasons, I haven't checked out the new. I don't even know, is it season 4, season 5? I feel like I watched all the way to season 3, and if I saw season 4, chat, I do not remember it. So maybe I'm not the right guy to speak on the quality of Stranger Things, but again, really strong. It's like The Office as well too. The Office is another one. Obviously, all-time great show, all-time great comedy. One of the great, again, like just with legs, rewatchable shows. The sustainability of that show, you'd have to continue to move it up the all-time rankings because it just continues to breach these different generations. But like the people that rank, like, is The Office the greatest TV show of all time, or is it a great rewatch and great moments with great characters? Like both things can be true. We can have objective rankings here, chat, and it's okay to. But again, we're about to do an NBA player or NFL player rankings, and make no mistake, there might be a couple of biased spots on there. So again, I'm probably just gonna be hypocritical, but I mean, we're all hypocritical at the end of the day, chat. It's just what it is. It's just what it is. We're all a bunch of big liars out there, and we all are biased toward our own stuff. So, but we do also, I guess, have a little bit of NBA going on. So, and before we mention any like the actual games and stuff as well too, it just continues to be, a tough time for not only Spurs fans. Chat, I say a tough time for Spurs fans. We don't want to necessarily be the victim here because we're not, as fans, we're not having to directly deal with any of the issues and the problems that are being dealt with by the people. But, like we were saying on the Friday show, obviously, as all the NBA world knows, that Wemby went down for the season with an injury, with not an injury as well too, I guess like a medical condition, a health condition is really the proper way to phrase it. And, it's kind of a scary condition as well too. And you just, hope and pray that he continues to heal, and long term it doesn't really turn into anything serious. But we also know, of course, Greg Popovich suffered a stroke earlier in the season and hasn't been on the sideline since then while he's been in recovery. But the report was out today as well too that, and it's probably, or maybe it was yesterday, chat. It may have been yesterday. It may still be on the homepage here. Let's see. But Yeah, not expected back for this season. And even more long term than that as well too. It seems like just his tenure with San Antonio may, not, I guess not saying that he wouldn't return to the league and not be in San Antonio, but his time as an NBA coach, like we just don't know how much more, if any, if Pop is going to be on the sideline anymore. But yeah, Michael C. Wright reporting here for ESPN. Spurs Hall of Fame coach Greg Popovich is not expected to return this season, and his NBA future is uncertain as he recovers from a stroke suffered in November. League sources told ESPN's Shams Charania. On Saturday, this latest development provides some closure during what has been a difficult season for San Antonio, which Thursday announced plans to shut down franchise superstar Victor Wembanyama after he was diagnosed with a deep vein thrombosis in his right shoulder. Popovich and Wemby have been in close contact over the past couple of days, sources told Charania. The coach has been hands-on in communicating and providing guidance in wake of Wemby's diagnosis. This is a quote now in the article from Chris Paul. It is wild to think of circumstances and the situations that we've been through as a team this year, Spurs point guard Chris Paul said after Wembanyama's latest medical setback, which is a form of blood clot in his right shoulder. Quoting Chris Paul, but I think you guys know when the situation happens in your family that somehow, some way brings you closer together. Popovich is the winningest coach in NBA history. 1,390 regular season wins shot. Jeez. And another 170 in the postseason to go with 5 championships. On November 2nd, he suffered what the team called a mild stroke ahead of the matchup against the Minnesota Timberwolves. And then, yeah, Mitch Johnson has been acting as the interim since then. And like they're saying, hands-on with Wembanyama over the last couple of days in wake of the diagnosis, but also just, as they say, has been active. Yes, Pop attacking rehab keeps Spurs contact. Of course, this is from, over a month ago. But still in contact with this team, still active in a role in providing guidance just as a basketball team too, as well as, of course, a person to Wembanyama in a time like this. But just shout out to Popovich, man. Shout out. You never, of course it's like, when is the time going to be that we're not in the point of Greg Popovich's career where we haven't been prepared for it. Not saying a stroke, but for him to just be like, hey, I've had the career, I'm good, I've done the all-time stuff, the wins, the championships, I've done it. I've been a Hall of Fame basketball coach, and I'm ready to hang up the clipboard, the pullover, whatever it may be, chat. But, we've been at least like, okay, it could be in the cards for Popovich to retire at some point as head coach of the San Antonio Spurs, but not because we wanted him to or anything like that. It's, Popovich can stay as long as he wants. He's still one of the best head coaches in the league, still able to, I know maybe, is he at the same stature that he once was? There's some good coaches in the league, but I still think actively, are there 5 coaches that you're going to take over Popovich, chat? Like right now? And, again, like season to season, certain guys stocks can rise and fall. Obviously, Spoelstra is going to be a name that gets brought up, even though the Heat are going to be a little bit down this year after trading Butler. You're still going to have, Spoelstra at the top of the list. Dagnall's now emerged at the top of the list for what he's been able to do in OKC, and then likewise in the Eastern Conference, with what Cleveland's been able to do and with what Kenny Atkinson's been able to achieve there, like his name continues to rise as like a, just a head coach that you'd want to have in the league. Warriors, Mavs is on in the background right now. Steve Kerr, of course, is another guy. But even still, like, I get Dagnall's pretty good. Like, those are all still guys that you would take confidently as your head coach and feel like you could have them win a title for your franchise. But Pop is still in that title where I feel like, or in that tier where you feel like he could bring a title to your franchise if he was your head coach. But regardless, at the age that he was at, you just have to be prepared if he is saying it's time to finally, let go of the game. And for it to happen like this, of course, is, very, the closure of knowing the Popovich tenure is going to be at an end, knowing that because even with like Duncan, I know like Duncan, we didn't have sort of the farewell tour and the goodbye party. And, he had his last season there. He walked off the court in OKC. Held the waved to the fans or held the number one finger up. I don't remember exactly what did, but acknowledged the fans there. And then next thing we know, Tim Duncan's retired, and the end of the Tim Duncan era in San Antonio. Like, that's it. That was the franchise run that we had with our guy. But Tim Duncan was the same thing, where every year kind of at the end there, we're like, yes, we're grateful that Tim Duncan's back. We love having Tim Duncan. He is a knowledgeable guy, and he's still like a great defensive player. Even at the end there, like, Tim Duncan was still a force in the middle. And I don't know if, he was playing now, like the end of his career now with some of the spacing stuff, how is his switching and keeping up, and, like what we're seeing with Horford. So, I don't know if his career ends out the same way, his defensive impact. It still does around the rim, of course, but he's able to kind of keep around the rim there, mid 20 teens by just the way that the game hasn't quite. And the Warriors, the next season, of course, move in and take over after they win that the San Antonio wins that title against Miami. But with Duncan, we were at least braced for the retirement. So while we didn't get the farewell tour, we knew that one of these seasons was going to be the last. We were prepared and grateful. And when it happened, we were like, okay, at least there was some closure. We got the end of the season, and he lived out his great career in San Antonio. And with Pop not being able to like coach a full season, end a full season, walk off the court in maybe the way that, win or loss at the end of the season, just to finally complete a season, complete one final basketball mission, and just be able to walk off the court knowing that, your guys gave it your all and that you tried your best is definitely the way that you want to end it out. But it doesn't matter either way. Like, Popovich is Popovich. Popovich is the greatest coach to ever coach basketball. I don't want to hear about Phil Jackson, chat. I mean, I guess, shout out Phil Jackson. We'll listen to the Phil Jackson arguments for sure. You don't win what? Like, does he have Bill Russell title numbers? Is he like at 11 titles or something like that? Because he won the MJ titles and then, the Kobe titles in there as well too. But again, we're talking about him playing with MJ and playing with Kobe, and not that we're going to discredit Tim Duncan by saying that he's not MJ, but MJ's just in a different tier of guy. That's a small tier of guy. That's a tier of guys that was up until LeBron kind of ascended in the 2016 finals and put his name in suggestion. Like, it's like that tier was only one guy up until a point. It's like MJ was the best guy. And honestly, the fact that LeBron is even caught up to MJ has kind of allowed, and again, we'd have to go back to the basketball discourse. Like, I'm sure Magic and Kareem still had, and Bill Russell, like, these guys still had their defenders when MJ has, after MJ had risen to the top. But it feels like now it's a little bit more reasonable to hear the Magic resume because of the way that we're looking at the LeBron. And again, LeBron has made the Magic Johnson career better. Headlines from the Remington pod. But it's like, well, now the conversation is like opened up. And maybe it's just now that there's a new era of people that are willing to have the conversation. Like, they'll look at these other guys as well too. Pause. But, Michael Jordan just in a level of his own. And then to have the Shaq and Kobe combination. And, Tim Duncan won 2 titles in that era when Shaq and Kobe were at the peak of their powers. So, they got the 3 in a row. They got the trilogy, the historic thing, whatever. But Tim Duncan was still top of the league, still getting wins off of those guys, and still, again, ascending to the top and being at the title team. But regardless, with Pop's sustainability, one franchise, I think, while you could argue resumes and say, yeah, I get the totality of the Phil Jackson thing, it's a lot. Like, it's a lot of winning, chat. We get it. It's hard to say that. He's number 2. I guess, what are we going to throw Red Auerbach in the conversation as well, too? Pat Riley. I mean, there are names that, again, if we open it up to like a list of who would you rather have as your head coach, and if we do that, I feel like there's just no way that you're not going to take Popovich number 1. As much as we love Phil Jackson's career, chat, and as all the great things he did, you're really taking Phil Jackson. I mean, Pop, who wants to deal with Phil Jackson when they can deal with great Popovich? Popovich is just a better guy to hang with. He's going to bring a bottle of wine at some point in his career. Maybe the early Pop years, he's a little more tense, a little more locked in. But at some point over the Pop cycle, you're going to get the loosening up. But pause. But Phil Jackson just tapped out. He was like, I'm going to commit to not committing. Popovich is like, I'm going to commit with a bottle of wine. And I'm going to commit with a couple of laughs, and I'm going to commit with a good time. And just, after the legacy kind of became what it was, and then the post-Spurs years, like, it's a fun guy. It's a fun coach. And not that Popovich wasn't a fun coach throughout the time, but, the little bit of the media percent. And again, he's fun the whole time. The dynamic between a guy like him and Craig Sager, like, yes, he was, he had his reputation for how he dealt with the media, but it wasn't in a Belichick-y way. It was still like the same amount of information being devolved, but again, the way he would do it and the way he would kind of caricature that persona in a way, not that he was playing a bit, but he would kind of have moments where he knew that what he was doing. And, Belichick was just always so committed to the bit. He was, we're on to Kansas City, we're on to Cincinnati, on to Seattle. We're just going to do the next thing, and we got to win in all three phases and the special teams, and we got to make sure we have the best punter in the league. And he's just so uptight against the media the entire time, where at least Pop was able to have this fun dynamic where he's like, yeah, I'm still probably not going to tell you much, and I'm still not really wanting to do this interaction, but I respect it's your job. I respect what you do here, and I'm still going to at least give you, we're still going to make a moment out of this. Like, Pop can make a moment out of it, even if he wasn't going to, sacrifice the basketball integrity, or, if he was being like, hey, I'm coaching a game here, like, I don't want to step out for the interview. There was still a charm that Pop is, and again, this is the biased side of us saying that Pop is more charming than Belichick, but I think that's kind of a consensus thought from when those guys were professionally coaching. And Belichick now, Belichick clearly more charming because he's got a 20-some-year-old girlfriend, but, again, when they were coaching chat, in terms of their perception with the media, I think Pop just was a little bit more, Pop's role for that guy was just a little bit more refined, and his character was just a little bit better. I don't know what the perfect TV comp or like movie comp of it is, but because it's not like a remake or whatever, they're coaching at the same time, but it's like two sort of similar characters, both great, both women winning Emmys and not Grammys because the music went up. Emmys are the TV show, Golden Globes, whatever awards, BAFTAs, whatever's out there for, winning. Like these two characters that are kind of doing the same thing, but you're like, Pop's just as a little bit more well-rounded. He'll crack a smile every now and then. He'll give you a joke every now and then. There'll be sort of a lighthearted moment, and he'll win you over. He'll get you back. He knew exactly how to sort of keep him at a distance, but just enough to where he could pull him back in just enough to get the media to like him at certain times. And just brilliant at handling all that stuff. Brilliant coach, brilliant guy, great guy. Just one of the all-time dudes, chat. So I know, again, fortunately the reports have said mild stroke. So hopefully, in terms of his recovery, if he's not able to get back on the sideline, maybe it would just be sort of a moment of reflection for him, where he's like, I'm sure, again, with strokes and things like that, I'm sure the stress of coaching is part of the thing that led to that. I'm sure Victor Wembanyama just taking 27-footers in the first half of the season and Pop goes down, chat. I wouldn't be surprised, but, is he like the toll of coaching and the stress and just whatever it is dealing with that and the rigor of not just the travel and the physical dealing of the games and stuff like that, but the actual, again, mental stress and just I'm sure Pop's gotten a couple of back issues as well too. Pause. Not like Belichick has recently, but it's just one of like stress, the way that you get just these weird spasms and flare-ups if you're like stressed out or working too hard or whatever, and it's like, oh, now all of a sudden, like, why is my back locking up? Well, it's like, well, you've been just putting in these 80-hour weeks, and yeah, maybe you're not deadlifting at the gym every day, but for some reason, the stress and all this stuff. And I'm sure he's sitting back and going, and maybe in just reflection, he's going, maybe this is the right time to walk away. But, again, hopefully it wouldn't be because he would not be, physically capable or whatever like that. Hopefully it would just be because he felt like it was, with just everything going on, the right time to step aside. And, there's a Mitch Johnson as well, too, is been there for a minute. I know they've had coaches that could have stepped in and taken over. I know Becky Hammon was there for a while, and it's like, is she the heir apparent to Greg Popovich? Who knows even, what the roles are if Pop is not back in the future and what they do long term. I love Mitch Johnson there, so I'm not in any way suggesting that, we should be looking elsewhere. But I'm just saying it's, for him to, I don't know if it's a Gerard Mayo, like, did he hand select Mitch Johnson in that same sort of way, but I would have had him pegged as like a pause. Hey, yo, whoa. I would have had him spotted, written down on a list, Chad. There's much better ways to phrase that. Yikes. There's, I would have had him, in the sights as a head coaching candidate anyways for just a team. And he was a guy that's like, oh, another guy on our staff that I really, really like. And he's just going to get poached away. So we have a guy that is of that ilk that could step in and take over right away. And maybe it just feels like everything is at a perfect timing where now is the time to finally call it a day for the San Antonio Spurs. Get your name in the Hall of Fame as well, too. See yourself inducted into the Hall of Fame, I think is an important part of it. And I think that should just always be a priority as well, too, for these leagues. I think making sure that the people get to see themselves and have that recognition in person should be a priority. Just as that almost to me should be especially at this point where we have so many guys in certain sports where we get that it's like, okay, we get that this guy's a Hall of Famer, but it's like we can only put so many guys in the Hall of Fame at one time. It's just there's a cycle here and we have to, do what it is. But to make sure, like, hey, do we have to gear towards some of these older guys? Do we have to gear towards some of the just do we have to pay respects to the legends in a certain way to make sure that they're honored in their time? And, for this, it's not like, Pop is coach. I mean, he did in a way, coach until he dropped. But, it's not like it's the literal version of that. And now, we have to do all the Popovich career stuff posthumously or whatever. It's like, there's still an honoring that can be done. There's still a recognition of how great he was as a coach. And, we can celebrate him while he's still with us. And if he walks away in good health and he's able to make a good recovery from this, hopefully he's able to have good quality of life going forward as well, too, with all that stuff, Chad. But again, you hate to see it from just a personal standpoint, as well as a basketball standpoint. Like I'm saying, Pop is, as a professional, one of the best at his job. So I'm sure that is a compliment to him to say that we miss his basketball coaching ability, but as well as too as just having that, like we're saying, the person, of course, in the locker room, on the court, in the organization. There's literally no replacing Greg Popovich. I mean, Mitch Johnson would have been a guy. I'd love to have him if you're telling him, if Pop, had called into the Remington pod and was like, hey guys, this is going to be my last season. I'm really thinking about retiring. Who do you think maybe we should start looking at to take over? And, if it's a guy in the system, maybe we can start sort of, getting him prepped in a way to take over this head coaching job. I would have been like, hey, I think you got a guy with Mitch Johnson. I think we should give him a shot to see what he could do. So I'm all in on having that if that's the future of the head coaching spot in San Antonio. And to really see as well, too, how his coaching can shine without Wembanyama. And because, again, with Wemby, like, you love to have Wemby, but you have to coach around Wemby. So now it's not have to. You get to coach around Wemby. It's a pleasure to have Wembanyama. Like, we're not going to trade that. We literally, look at Simmons' trade value rankings. Literally not trading that guy for anybody in the league, even after the shoulder stuff. Does not matter. There's just no point in the near future where you're trading Victor Wembanyama. But now he gets to be in his bag as a coach a little bit, and we get to see what he can do with the rotations, with the plays, with drawing some of this stuff up, and really get to evaluate him in a real way. And he's had Victor Wembanyama in and out of games, so it's not like we haven't had a chance to see him in that way. But now for a sustained stretch here to really figure it out in a real way is going to be a good chance to get a good look at him. Pause. So shout out to Pop, man. Loved having Pop. Loved the head coaching tenure. Of course, we love Pop the dude as well, too. So shout out. Get well soon. Hopefully we don't have to do any more get well soons for these Spurs organizations or for anybody, of course, any organization. But, just the personal attachment that we have to these guys, watching their careers and their careers directly affecting, our emotional states from day to day. It's just going to be at the top of the mind when things happen to these guys as well, too. So shout out. It is tough to see. And hopefully Greg Popovich gets back soon. Let me adjust the fan here real quick, chat, because make no mistake, we are a cooking. Like I said, it's been heaters all winter, but we're going to have to adjust properly. Going to get temperature control, climate change for the Remington pod room. Yikes, chat. Did we go to break on that one? I don't know. That's a yikes. Testing 1, 2. Okay, there we are. Okay, we're back, and I think we can just get right into this player rankings as well too, because the NBA is not giving us much more than, some unfortunate news. The Mavs are getting crushed right now by the Warriors, and Steph was lighting up that third quarter as well too, while we were rambling there. So let's see where he's at for the game real quick. And the Jimmy Butler addition to the team really does seem to be bumping them up a level that maybe I thought it wasn't. But then again, Steph, too, has also been playing more consistently than he was to start the season. He's at 30 points today as well, too. So, again, shout out to Simmons. He was talking about how Steph has just not quite been able to peak the same way that he has over the last couple of years, obviously. And then that's totally fair. He said that he has, no 40-point games this year. So I guess, not he's saying, just Steph has not put up a 40-point game this year. But he has been much more consistent with just getting that 30-plus every night. And, again, it's not the same sort of Steph just throws a team on his back and can do everything and hit every shot and put up 50 points and propel your team to win. I get that. But if the team around him does get better with the addition like a Jimmy Butler, and he does get more consistent at 30-point range, like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was a guy for a while that you go, okay, he actually is, he's leading the league in scoring. But if you look at, like, the high-end scoring performances, I think going into this season, he hadn't scored 50 points in a game in his career. His career high was like, mid-40s. So it's like that just Shai every night is 30-plus. It's 32, 34, 35, 31, 36. It's just every night, just the consistency from Shai is always going to be there. So if Steph is, maybe he's not able to peak in the same way, but if that consistency is back, then he is still kind of in that mix for that number one guy. Because again, at the end of the day, like, you just need him to, all we ask for these guys is just to show up every night and play awesome, right, chat? That's all we ask. That's all we want as fans. Just a simple request. Show up every night and play your best, play awesome, play well. But, if Steph's going to give you 30-plus in the playoffs, what more can you want? If you need Steph to give you 45 a night to win a couple of playoff rounds, then we go, oh, man, Steph just continues to up his all-time great status and continues to climb these all-time rankings, and he has just this puts his team on his back, even the best version of it maybe that he's ever done. But if you need your guy to score 45 points a game to win in the playoffs, you're, again, either talking about Michael Jordan being all-time or LeBron carrying a team to the finals. Not that, again, Steph is not in the mix to do either of those things, but it just means that, is Steph at this point in his career like a Michael Jordan peak of his powers type guy? Probably not. So is he also, again, going to be, you need the team to just be better is essentially the thing. You just need to make sure that team around him is a little bit better and a little bit stronger just to make up for that little bit of peak stuff where you're not going to have, and it's not even, again, to make up for Steph. It's just that Steph is not able to make up for your mistakes in the same way. You just got to make sure that you're actually having your job. I mean, that was the Brady thing. Brady for all those years, it's like Brady's just going to make up for your mistakes. But you get to a point where it's like, okay, Brady might need a little bit of a line and some protection and some weapons and some things around him, and he's still going to be able to get the job done. He can still go to Tampa and win a Super Bowl, and he can still go to Tampa and throw 5,000 yards in his last season, even if it's not, awesome. It's still it's still a better version of most quarterbacks in the league. He can still get it done. So, and even now we're still wondering, like, hey, what would Brady get up to for quarterbacks? Pause. But speaking of which, I mean, I guess, do we just keep teasing the player rankings out, chat? I don't know, but I guess what else is there in the NBA? Luka, he's back. He's awesome. There's other stuff that we could get into that we have time. But, I feel like when most people are going to do like a player ranking thing, they would kind of have their rankings set. It would be like, hey, this is what we've got down, set in stone as the ranking. This is what we've decided. I get it. That's kind of the approach. You got to have an opinion and hold to it. But how we like to operate here, chat, with some stuff. We like to talk it out a little bit. And of course I have an idea. We're not going in blind with the player rankings, but nothing is set in stone. I'm not approaching this as like these are the definite top 10 running backs in the league. Again, I have an idea. I have guys that I generally like, and maybe guys that, again, you just kind of have that list of guys where you say best at the position, and you just subconsciously have like that couple of names that it just seems like for some reason that those are the top guys that you end up gravitating towards, even if it's not, everybody's like got Justin Jefferson at the top of the list. But it's like, are we stepping on the list already? Like, I feel like I might mention a guy like A.J. Brown a little bit sooner than most people, and maybe not even so after this year, chat, as well, too, with the Eagles winning the Super Bowl. But I know we should probably count down as well, too, for some suspenseful reveal, 10-1 and all that stuff. But I feel like since, again, it's going to be just a lot of list chat, then it's okay to just, go one and top down pause. And I feel like it's a better way to work through the rankings because, like, what's the reveal for quarterback, chat? Could we get super hot takey? Like, Mahomes is, of course, he's going to be our number one guy. I guess, is there now another guy that we would hear the case for in the league? And would those guys be in the AFC? If we were just looking at the other guys at the peak of their powers right now with more established careers, guys that have been in the league for a while, the other guys in the mix are going to be in the AFC. And Mahomes, even if the Super Bowl didn't ultimately turn out great, the AFC stuff is still as dominant as it is. And that still kind of, again, goes to a general league thing. I thought they were showing a highlight, but Steph was hitting another three. But it was a highlight, so sorry, chat. I'm getting distracted. We're back to live now, though, so I'm sure Steph's going to hit a three sometime soon. Maybe not, though. It's a pretty decisive lead at this point. So who knows even how much Curry will see. Maybe we get the Quentin Post-Podzemski minutes down the stretch here. But, I don't know if there's anybody from a legacy standpoint that we know just the totality of it hasn't matched Pat Mahomes. But as of right now, is there a player that you would trust more in a playoff game than Pat Mahomes still? And I guess the question is, is that guy played long enough yet? I feel like the guys in that mix for it we just still need to see a little bit more from their careers. But the direct guys like behind Mahomes, the established guys that we go, okay, playoff resumes, they've been in the leagues, they've won the MVPs, whatever. It's still the same thing in the AFC. Mahomes runs the AFC. And I know that, because of the trilogy thing, it does feel like there's a little bit of a ending of like sort of this chapter, and the Kelsey thing as well too. Like the Kelsey dynamic is going to change this year no matter what. I know Sam was saying that the Chiefs just need to go ahead and trade Travis Kelsey, or waive him or whatever. Like he just, Sam is like, if the Travis Kelsey tenure with the Chiefs is done, that is okay from probably a football impact standpoint. I still think Kelsey can give you good minutes if he is able to commit to a role that is appropriate for what he's able to accomplish at this point in his career. And not to say that he can't accomplish great things. Again, the Super Bowl was not good for everybody, including Mahomes, and we're trusting Mahomes to get back to a great level as well too. So could Kelsey have that last season under contract be a really, really high level, even Pro Bowl level season? Absolutely. Especially the tight end position as well too, chat. I mean, I guess we'll get to that ranking at some point here tonight, chat. But yeah, I just am not quite ready to hear the case for anybody over Mahomes yet. Hot take. It is what it is, but again, he's been in. We've lost count of the Super Bowls at this point, chat. 4 Super Bowls, 5 Super Bowls, won 3 of them. Couple of MVPs, the historic seasons. It's still too much. It's still too much, and the Eagles' recipe is definitely there. Is there a recipe with the pressure, all that stuff? But that's the recipe for any great quarterback. It's you're gonna pressure him with 4 people. It's gonna be a hard day for any of these elite guys to survive. So Mahomes has to be number one, but I think maybe one of the biggest winners from the playoffs, and maybe again from the Mahomes dominance of it all, and maybe some guys in the NFC that we'll get to as well too here shortly, but another AFC guy that I feel like we have to mention right off the top of the list. And if we're doing, and I guess we should mention kind of the parameters for what this ranking is. So it is obviously in the moment, like snapshot of who the best guys in the league are, but I always kind of think of this exercise as, I guess not always, but for this one that we're doing here, it is, we go back, it's like the next like 4 or 5 years, next half decade-ish, but we go back and replay this season as well too, kind of knowing what we know. So again, it's like if we go back and replay this Mahomes season, if you're able to trade for Mahomes in some weird world, are you just guaranteed a trash Super Bowl performance because that's what we got? Like, I don't know, what the simulation scenarios are here, chat. I'm just saying, like, if we get the time machine and we go back to the start of the 2024 season and it's like a redraft situation, who are we taking? We're still taking Mahomes. We're playing this season out with Mahomes, and we're going forward the next handful of years with Pat Mahomes as the top guy. So again, it's in the moment. Who do we want? But you still got to calculate some of the future stuff, I think, into it as well too, for more so than just like 1 year. Can we have this guy for one season? Because that always just feels like, especially maybe the quarterbacks a little bit more so. But how many guys are you really bringing in for like one season? A lot of those guys you're bringing in at the trade deadline, and it's just a different thing. It's like DeAndre Hopkins this year, and are we touched again? Shout out to DeAndre Hopkins, one of the greats, one of the best to ever do it, especially 2010s modern times. He's an elite weapon, but current day, are we even going to get to the point in the wide receiver rankings where we get to DeAndre Hopkins, chat? Probably not. So it just becomes a different type of guy. But again, if this is kind of the exercise for, we go back and, we replay this season. Again, are we replaying the season on the teams? Do you kind of say, I can build a version of the team around it? However you want to think about it. But we go back and replay this season with this guy, and we get him for the next couple of years going forward. I think the number 2 quarterback for me is still Joe Burrow, chat. Joe Shiesty, the guy that didn't even make the playoffs, has somehow ascended over all these other playoffs, all these other playoff QBs. And, the playoff history is obviously a big part of that. What he was able to do against Pat Mahomes and the success that he's had factors into it. But can we say that like Burrow had a bad year this year, Chad? I think we all know that Burrow was awesome. I mean, look at the stats. He was the best quarterback statistically in the league with like, did he lead in yards and touchdowns? He led in yards, but I want to say he led in touchdowns as well too. The offense, was just in general a super high scoring offense. He powered Chase powered himself, but they go hand in hand as the number ones for their respective categories. So yeah, number 1, I mean, chucking the ball a lot, chat, make no mistake. Attempts and completions, but again, was still statistically able to perform, was still putting up and still playing great football. Almost 5,000 yards, 43 touchdowns to 9 picks. He had a 1.4 interception rating, chat. Look at that. That is, and I know it's a little bit messy here with some of the games played for some of these guys. Like, I think Flacco's on this list here. Like, do we need Spencer Rattler's on this list? Let's keep Spencer Rattler in mind. But, do we need all these guys on this list here? But for the guys that played last year, he was, I guess we're going to have to sort this the other way. For positive-wise, he was, where's Burrow? 7th. So 7th best interception percentage in terms of the good way of looking at the lowest version. 7th lowest interception percentage. Again, led in all the stats. Success percentage, 3rd overall success percentage. Quarterback rating, 3rd overall quarterback rating. QBR, number 3 as well too. So like, look at it, literally any way you slice it, top 3 regular season quarterback. So I guess we're just being one of the most optimistic versions of that, putting him at number 2. But do we trust him a little bit more in a playoff? Like, if we get him in a playoff game, if we had him on the Bills and the Ravens and going up against the Chiefs, do we trust him a little bit more than Allen? And I guess, see, this is the part about talking it out, chat, because this is like, I guess, the hot take version of the season going, hey, Burrow is still the only guy in the AFC that can take down Mahomes in the playoffs. But if we do actually take a second to remember that Bills playoff game, and we do our due diligence here and try to actually give the rankings some thought. I mean, did Josh Allen not accomplish what he needed to? Like, they didn't get the 4th down, but they did. And then that wasn't the last possession they got. They got one more possession. Did he throw a pick in there? Did Josh Allen have like a super costly play? Did he have the fumble? Let's go back and remember, chat. I need that play-by-play for the Chiefs-Bills championship game. What happened at the end of the game that cost him outside of the 4th down stop? Outside of the refs. Was there something else? Late field goal by Butker broke the tie at 3 minutes. But in between the tie break and the end of the game, what drama proceeded? Oh, that's how can we forget, Chad? That's right. He had the pass to Kincaid. He had that incredible fourth down scramble where he kept the play alive, somehow got the pass off to Kincaid, and Kincaid just dropped it. So Josh Allen did do what he needed. Josh Allen played his role, Chad. Josh Allen played his part. He won the MVP of the league this year, even though much maligned, if we use that word, we're like, kind of criticized by the media. Lamar, he needs to get that third MVP, even though he's only won 2 playoff games. He just absolutely needs a third MVP. Josh Allen cannot win one, even though, yeah, I get the Lamar stats a little bit better. They're doing the same exact thing, kind of. And again, Lamar, hey, share the wealth, man. Participation trophies all around. Let's get Josh Allen an MVP. But does this make us reconsider? Now, see, the problem is, again, if I'm going with my gut, like, lined up these guys at the park, who do I pick as my quarterback? I would still probably want Lamar as my franchise quarterback. So I guess just take away everything I said. Lamar, yeah, give him the MVP. But just in terms of the resume, after what happened this season, like, Lamar has had a little bit more costly playoff moments, and I don't know if Allen had the costly playoff moments versus the guys around him had the costly playoff moments. So I still want to believe in Lamar, so maybe I just don't want to be biased, but am I being biased by putting Josh Allen up front, Chad? Who knows? But I don't want to be biased toward my Lamar, the hype we have in Lamar as a quarterback. But would the correct way to do the rankings, do we have to put Allen over Lamar? And would we have to put Allen over Burrow? The thing is, Burrow does have those wins in the legacy and still is proving himself to be, again, amongst the best quarterbacks in the league. There's no doubting Joe Burrow's ability. It's just the team around him was one of the worst defenses in the league, and they didn't get stops, and there's real reasons why the Bengals were not able to achieve what they did. I mean, we do have to be fair to the Bengals offense. There were some moments maybe at the end of games where was it clicking the same way that maybe it had been for the rest of the game. Are there moments where it's like, okay, do we need to just not rely on the defense here? Like, let's let the offense run the clock. Let's let the offense chew up some time and make sure that we don't have to put the other unit in a position to be detrimental to the team. But there's maybe we'd have to go back to the entire game log where there are other times where it's like, okay, like 90 seconds left, minute left, whatever. The Jaden Daniels versus Bengals Monday night thing, we'd have to remember how that played out, beat for beat. But, were there situations where it's like, okay, now it's kind of off of Burrow's shoulders. You can really only do so much. The 13 seconds for the Bills and the Chiefs. But, man, I feel like maybe it's the fear that I have for Burrow at this point in the playoffs. And, is that, again, the familiarity of just another year of Lamar and Josh Allen both ending with playoffs and both not making the Super Bowl. And just because Burrow didn't make the playoffs, does he get a bump from that? But I feel like I'd be maybe a little bit more scared if the Colts were going up against Burrow in like a fourth quarter, last minute drive. Just the fear that I would have in Burrow is like kind of that old school drive manager, get the ball down the field kind of play. So I still feel like let's go. We got to go with what our gut was telling us, Chad. I think we don't want to overthink it. We don't want to over talk it out. We just do with what we were going to commit to with a bit with what we kind of had originally. So Mahomes 1, Burrow 2, Lamar 3, Josh Allen still 4. Now, see, this becomes the weird part of the ranking where it's like, we were arguing for Josh Allen 2, and then now we have him at 4. But now that he's at 4, and we're arguing the rest of the rankings, like, do we argue some of these other guys? But again, he was clutch in the playoffs, so we can't really use Josh Allen big moments thing against him at this point, because again, he got it done. So he also has just a stacked resume at this point of being dynamic. And the other thing with this top tier of guys versus maybe the next tier, because again, there is a quarterback that, his stock's way through the roof, chat. Maybe he just won a Super Bowl. Maybe he should be a little bit higher on the rankings with that kind of, like, literally a championship level quarterback. Like, where does the other, and, something that I didn't think about as well too, but something that we had mentioned in the Mahomes legacy thing was who were the current quarterbacks to actually have Super Bowl rings. Because Brady won one of those. Brady won a couple of those Super Bowls. I guess Nick Foles won a Super Bowl, right? The Patriots beat the Chiefs, but the Eagles beat the Patriots that year. So it's like Nick Foles is not really a quarterback in that same way. If he's even in the league still. You know, Brady had a Super Bowl. He's retired. Rodgers has a Super Bowl, but that's from a decade ago, and he's not the same level of guy. So if we're going, top competitors against Mahomes, like Stafford was the only other current quarterback that actually had a Super Bowl ring. So again, if we're just stacking up who are the championship level quarterbacks, Jalen Hurts, like at what point do we bring up Jalen Hurts in this mix here? But I feel like this top handful of guys are guys that can still succeed in a certain way outside of the system. And, I guess, we just saw Mahomes, the system crumble around Mahomes, and Mahomes crumble in the Super Bowl. But again, Mahomes is in the Super Bowl. And Mahomes is taking down these teams in the AFC, still with a good Chiefs team, and still with a team that's going to be deadly next year if they keep a lot of these pieces together. But Mahomes is still having clutch moments. He was still big in the playoffs, still really huge for him. At the end of, the second half of last year, really played clutch football, really played clean football as well, too. So, still Pat Mahomes. He was still playing really well at the end of last year, even though the Super Bowl, unfortunately, as a legacy game, just, a tough beat there. But these are all guys that can have that greater success and sort of transcend the things around him in a way. So we know Allen can carry a team at an extra level. We know Lamar can carry an offense at an extra level. And I don't quite know where Hurts falls in that category yet. So it's like, hey, Hurts on a good team. Is he every bit as deadly as Josh Allen? He can get the job done. Absolutely. But is Josh, if we swapped quarterbacks, put Hurts on the Bills and put Josh Allen on the Eagles, I mean, just me saying that, chat, and just I think you guys hearing the idea of Josh Allen on the Eagles, just like the little kind of tense up scaredness you got of that, I think kind of shows you in the rankings that even if the playoff success there is not there for some of these guys, if they switched spots, would the results had been, if Lamar is on the Eagles, and again, we have to really look at the Hurts thing and go, he was clutch. The offense was efficient. I saw a stat that said the offense put up the most points ever in playoff history, which, a number 2 seed playing in the first round of the playoffs. It's only happened, over the last handful of years. The record was probably going to go down because a 1 seed still gets the bye, but you still have the 2 seeds in each conference, high-powered teams, both playing an extra playoff game in there as well, too. But maybe points per game, they were also the highest per game for like a Super Bowl winning team as well, too. We'd have to go and look at that because that'd be an interesting stat to compare as well. But if Lamar was on the Eagles, I think they're probably going to be okay. Again, the clutch thing, maybe you have your questions about Lamar, but maybe it's just the Eagles offense with Lamar there is still able to be the same high-powered offense. Shocker. And with Barkley in a Henry role and the defense, we saw that the Eagles defensive line is just better than the Ravens defensive line. And we know that Eagles roster is a little bit of a step up, and going through the NFC as well too. I almost want to say the Eastern Conference, but going through the NFC, maybe a little bit easier for Lamar to get to the Super Bowl. He doesn't have to play Mahomes and then get to Mahomes in the Super Bowl, and maybe he gets the win there. I still feel like both those guys probably win the Super Bowl if they're on the Eagles. That's my take. I don't know if it's a hot take, but that's where I would have it. Same with Burrow. Like Burrow on the Eagles, I feel like he probably wins the Super Bowl. So now we know. I guess we need to just put Jalen Hurts' name in here. Have him in the top 5 and just go, if you gave me this as your list of top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL, I mean, this is perfect. I mean, Mahomes, Burrow, Lamar, Josh Allen, and Jalen Hurts makes a ton of sense, Chad. Jalen Hurts, again, he just won the Super Bowl. He's a championship level quarterback. He deserves every bit to be in that top 5. But, Chad, you knew it was coming. But, pause. But, if we are committing to the exercise, and if we are saying that if we flip a couple, and again, that's not totally fair to Jalen Hurts because all you can do is maximize your opportunity, and he literally did that. He won the Super Bowl. So, I mean, mission accomplished. Great job, Jalen Hurts. Again, we could probably have him too. You could have, if you told me that if we were drafting quarterbacks right now for guys that you want in the league, and you said that you want Mahomes 1 and Jalen Hurts 2, I would not blame you, Chad. I would not blame you. Because even if we're saying in those Super Bowls, Hurts has directly outplayed Mahomes twice versus how many times has Burrow outplayed Mahomes in a playoff? If we're setting Mahomes as the standard for how you play as a quarterback, then I think that kind of sets him up there. At least, what are you gonna have Hurts over Mahomes after outplaying Mahomes in 2 Super Bowls? I guess. Could we get there, chat? Could we get there? I was gonna get ahead of myself with slotting these guys above Hurts, but even as I'm talking it out, I don't know. But I guess to go with what we were originally thinking, we'll circle back to the Hurts versus Mahomes thing. If we're switching these guys out, I don't want to get too hot takey, but could Jaden Daniels have won the Super Bowl on the Eagles this year? So if we're going, this is where the sort of the future portion of the exercise plays into it as well too, because we know that Hurts' future is as bright as all these guys. He's a young and upcoming star, and he's not even upcoming anymore. He's ascended to the top of the league, but he still has that youthful part to his. He's still got the youth on his side, where he's got time to be a great quarterback and enter his prime and have his peak day still ahead of him. But so does Jaden Daniels, and if we're talking about guys transcending situation, Jaden Daniels was one of the best situation transcenders in the league. Not that Washington was bad. Washington played really well. The roster in Washington, overachieved is not a diss to say. Like, it's a diss to us, I guess, as people that thought that they were not going to play well, going that, we just undervalued them in the season. I guess that's the right way to put it. They were undervalued in the season, and they got to a really high. They got to the NFC Championship game, even though do we say that's a top 4 team in the league? Like, a lot of that though is because of what Jaden Daniels is able to do from an efficiency standpoint, and able to run that offense and just not turn the ball over, and to be able to deal with pressure as well too. Because if we're using Mahomes as a standard, well, maybe we should use the Eagles as a standard because they just won the Super Bowl this year. And if the Eagles are the standard, well, Jaden Daniels played better against the Eagles than Mahomes. So it's like, well, are we putting Jaden Daniels number 1 in the league? But Daniels is kind of the guy where if you're doing the future thing, is this hot takey, chat? I personally wouldn't say that I would take Jaden Daniels over Mahomes. But if somebody else said it, I wouldn't think of you as crazy. Again, I wouldn't do it. I don't even know if I would advise it. If you called me and asked me what the pick would be, I'm saying you got to take Mahomes, brother. What are we doing? I'm making Mahomes GOAT cases over here. I'm making DJ Academics level, Drake's. I guess got to be careful with what we're saying that we're doing in comparison to DJ Academics as well. But in terms of the Drake level defenses, we're trying to keep Mahomes in the GOAT conversation over here. Like we still are. On Mahomes is the number 1 guy in the league. Pause. But with what Daniels showed in his ability to deal with pressure this year, just cannot be denied as maybe the best in the league. And the other guy in the mix as a young guy that I was thinking about here as well too was CJ Stroud, who kind of same thing with Daniels last year, and unfortunately, took a step back this year. But I think even what Daniels was doing against pressure is a little bit more dynamic than Stroud. And if we're even getting technical, is he a little bit faster? Stroud, does he have a little bit more durability maybe? But Stroud has also missed time with injuries. So I don't know if that's a perfect point to make as well too in Stroud's defense. And again, I'm talking about flipping these guys in 1 to 2 spots in the rankings. Like, these are, the next 3 guys here in argument, I guess, if we want to write them down. For me anyways, like we're saying, we're unveiling the rankings here. Would be Jaden Daniels, and then CJ Stroud. And if we are saying if we flip these guys in the Eagles, like, why wouldn't Jaden Daniels have won the Super Bowl this year if he was on the Eagles? I'm literally talking about this year, 2025, as a rookie. Jaden Daniels, first season in the league, offensive rookie of the year. He could have won the Super Bowl on the Eagles. And I'm not trying to discredit Jalen Hurts at all. And I'm not trying to say that the Eagles, the Eagles is a great roster. I'm not trying to say that they carried Jalen Hurts in that way. I'm just saying that with what Daniel's skill set was with dealing with pressure, he's not going to have to worry about those things in Philly. He's going to have the time to process. He's going to still be able to do, I think, a lot of the quick read stuff that Hurts was able to do. And, you look back at what they were doing this year as well, too, with that. And the ball control element of that was, I think, really important and maybe undervalued as a long-term play for a lot of us fans when we were just comparing them to the Chiefs, that they're going to, you look at it and go, is their offense struggling at times? And is it not looking as clean, and they have these long drives and they just tush push or whatever, and it's like just the sloppy way to move the ball down the field. But no, it's like they're chewing up clock. They're really dominating the time of possession and controlling the game and moving the pace of the game at their will, chat. And Hurts, maybe you look at it and go, there's limitations, but again, he's ascends to the moment and he controlled the game in the biggest moment. But could Daniels not have done that, I guess is what I'm asking. It's just like, could Stroud not have had that moment in the big game? So I guess we have to give Hurts credit. We can't get too hot takey and start saying, again, with some of the future stuff, like Daniels is right up there with all of these guys for who you would want to have for the future. If we're starting fresh this offseason and going, who are the guys we want from now going forward? Again, I kind of wanted to work this past season as a way to reflect on, again, a current player ranking, but also acknowledge that, because if we're ranking seasons, I don't know if there are any other quarterback seasons that we would put in here over Jaden Daniels, because if we're factoring the playoffs into it as well too, like I think this is totally fair. I think this is totally fair. And if you want to flip him and Stroud, maybe, but to be honest, I don't know if there is another guy. Let me go back and I guess we all know who the names are anyways, but there's not even I think this is a tier break for me. This is definitely a tier break. And there's just not another guy that you would take over Daniels. Like, if you're going to make cases and all that stuff, I get it, but for me, this is where it would stop. And, are we going to say like a guy like Drake May, again, if we're going the super long-term thing, pause, then, the younger guys, I get it. I guess, Arch Manning, if we want to start looking into the college realm of things. Is Arch Manning going to be on this player ranking, chat? Just the idea of taking Arch Manning. Where does that rank amongst quarterbacks these days? Who knows? But, again, I'm talking a snapshot of this season. If we went back and replayed this season, knowing that Jaden Daniels can just process and stay as cool and calm and collected as he can, as a rookie, I don't know why you wouldn't want to have him amongst all these other guys, Chad. To me, he's just immediately a top 7-8 quarterback in the league right now. And, again, I'm number 6 right now, right behind Hurts. And if you want to tell me that starting from scratch, I would trust Jaden Daniels to make up, like we're saying, actually make up for some of those things, then I would believe that. Because that's, like I'm saying with Hurts, it's a little bit of, we know he's awesome at powering a good team. That's, to me, not a diss at all. Like, I'm 5-6 quarterbacks in the league, and if we're doing a fantasy draft and we can't get Mahomes as the number 1 pick, we're strategizing. We're probably not going to get Hurts. Hurts is going to go off the board really early, too. The quarterback's going to go off the board right away. We know. But Daniels and Stroud are in that conversation for me, they can transcend their situation a little bit. The problem is, I guess we saw Stroud, kind of take a step back with that struggling this year. So will it be Jaden Daniels year 2, defenses adjust to him, people familiarize themselves with him a little bit more, people have a game plan to stop him in a better way, and we see him, kind of even out in a normal way. Maybe he throws a couple more picks. Stroud was like 12 or so picks this year, like 2 or 3 picks last year in the way Jaden Daniels was a rookie. So now it's like, okay, the average is not too bad for CJ Stroud year to year. You don't want him to be double-digit picks every year. I know the season's longer as well, too. So is 10 picks like the worst thing in the world? Probably not. But, we're not going to want to start pushing up into the teens and stuff like that. But it's like, okay, over the 2 year, 15 picks in 2 years, that's not bad at all. 7.5 picks a year, whatever it would be for Stroud. It's like, that's totally fine. You'll take that. That's great. But again, with the Burrow thing, not seeing him compete this year, with not having Daniels have that year 2 struggle, I'm biased, chat. I flipped him over Stroud. It is what it is. But we have to pay respect for Hurts' playoffs performance, because, like I'm saying, there's the season, there's the franchise aspect. I mean, there's so many ways that you could rank the players. That's why you kind of have to pick one and just commit to the bit. And then the problem becomes like, are we deviating from the bit a little bit in certain ways, and then the ranking can become inconsistent at times to fit our own bias. But if we're like drafting guys to play in the Super Bowl, then Hurts, like, how do you not have Hurts as the number 2 guy? Again, Allen, is he not going to play well in the Super Bowl? But you just know what Hurts. Hurts' confidence, and the fact that he's been a winner at every level as well too. There's just like a history that we have with Hurts now where, I mean, he's an alpha, he's a leader, chat, and you just know that he is kind of, again, I don't want to, you don't want to start saying Tim Duncan-y for everybody, chat, but is he a little bit of that steadying force kind of guy at the quarterback position? And with the way that we saw him, even not just this season, but through this Eagles run and being in Philly, we know the turmoil that fan base can bring and the media narratives that can be generated. I mean, people were firing Sirianni halfway through the season, and they were able to overcome that and win the Super Bowl. And like Doug Peterson, Sirianni might get fired in a season and a half. Like, he probably has the Super Bowl earned Sirianni about 7 games. If maybe not even that. Like, let's be honest, if the Eagles are like 1-5 to start next year, like, Sirianni might be gone. It's just what it is in Philly. You can't judge anything. I know, that might be kind of way overreacting, but I'm just saying that it's a hard, it's a tough crowd over there in Philadelphia. But the way that they've been able to navigate that, and the way that all of the guys, the way that just Hurts has commanded respect of everybody in that organization is crazy, Chad. He has done that in a way that maybe him and Mahomes, and like we're saying with Daniels, they've kind of, and I guess all these top guys, they go in and they capturing an organization is part of that. Like, you don't go in and, I mean, you can still, I guess, be a great talent. And I mean, speaking of not capturing an organization, you maybe look at a guy in New York that has had moments with that as a quarterback in his career, but has that actually translated over into playoff success? Like, when they've been disconnected, it's kind of been when Rodgers has been at his worst. And well, I guess that's the guy, chat. But but when certain guys are there can be a disconnect from teams and from organizations and from certain things. And I think guys like Rodgers as well too. It's not like certain guys in the locker. I mean, 100 plus guys in an organization. I'm sure Rodgers is going to find a couple of buddies to hang out with that share some like-minded interests. But like Devontae Adams and stuff, like, these guys aren't totally out on him. But just in terms of that working dynamic with everybody, like, Hurts is it, chat. Hurts has commanded the respect of the NFL, the fans, everybody. So the more we talk this out, like, I almost, looking at it, want to put Hurts at 2. Like, I was kind of set on, like, hey, Burrow's still back. Like, we love defending Burrow as a playoff guy. And like we're saying, he's just a scary clutch time quarterback. I think Burrow's a guy, he's built different, chat, built for the big moments. And he's got that celebrity relationship going now, chat. We say celebrity girlfriend for everybody, but I don't think Burrow's putting labels on it. I don't know if it's defined, but do we have to go to break again, chat? I don't know, but anyways, sticking to the football and the player rankings. Hurts, he is in I think he's got the Mahomes thing as well too, chat, where is he got like a long-term, I guess, we don't need to go the Hurts backstory route, but is there a correlation between high school / college girlfriends and Super Bowl champions? I mean, I don't know if it's what is coincidence or what is actually playing out here over the last couple of years, chat, but something to look at. These are the types of things that you just get so obsessed with trying to find any way to just, especially with the quarterback position, like, evaluate a guy. You're like, okay, so the last couple of Super Bowl quarterbacks, they've been in 7+ year relationships since they won the Super Bowl, so we need to make sure that we draft a guy that is 4+ years, so by the 3rd year, it's like, oh, okay, maybe we just need to go back to the film and stick to the film. And the film, while, again, Hurts may have had his ups and downs, his limitations, the film in the games that you're going to watch, the biggest moments, the brightest lights, chat, the end of the movie, that's the thing. The main character in the movie may have games in the montage where he just sucks, chat, or the offense sucks, or there's going to be moments in the movie where the coach is like, I'm not going to lose my job. Is the quarterback going to get replaced? Especially if the movie's based in Philly. But it's about what happens at the end of the movie, right, chat? How does the movie end? And this year for Philly, obviously, it ended in the Super Bowl. So, screw it. Hurts too. Second best quarterback in the league. Why not? I mean, it does sound right as well, too. I'm not saying it, and it doesn't sound crazy. I know, again, we got Burrow, Lamar, Josh Allen. We've got 4 MVPs combined between the 3 guys. Yeah, I think that's the right match, chat. But guys with, again, playoff resumes and successes, and the only guys that, they haven't really overcome are each other. Lamar and Josh Allen only lose to Mahomes, and Josh Allen loses in dramatic fashion. But regardless, it doesn't matter. It's like we can nitpick and we can make excuses. And I want to make, I want to reshuffle these rankings and just have a moment where all these guys are number 1 and number 2 because they're all amazing players, Chad. And there's really, like we're saying, there's no wrong answer here. Hurts has kind of proved that, and this is the part about football, chat, is, and, again, to speak to a guy like Anthony Richardson, not to just keep bringing up names and say, hey, this guy is compared to this. Comparison is a thief of joy. But you're always, of course, looking for the talent that you bring in to be the next talent. You want to draft the next Mahomes. Because if you have Mahomes, there's a certainty with Mahomes that you have. And there's a winning and results that you get with Mahomes as well, too. It's not just the mental side of it. It's the actual what happens on the field. Mahomes wins games. It's not even just draft the guy, of course, that plays like Mahomes. You just want to draft the next guy that is going to dominate the league. However, you can pinpoint that in the metrics and in the, of course, we've been chasing that the entire time. But you don't also need the one quarterback that you don't need the best quarterback of all time to win the Super Bowl. If you have the best quarterback of all time, you're probably going to win a Super Bowl. But like we know, chat, you don't need, and you're probably going to win more as well too. Like Mahomes, we're talking about him losing the Super Bowl. Guess what? He's won 3 Super Bowls, and he's already top 5 quarterback of all time. So we're not saying that, is Mahomes going to get the legacy stuff? It's how much is the legacy stuff going to continue to grow at this point? Pause. But if we narrow it down to what it is, chat, in the year to year, the competitive nature of we need to win a Super Bowl this year and we need to set ourselves up to be winning Super Bowls, how are we setting ourselves up for the best success to be winning Super Bowls? You don't need Mahomes. You need to build the team that you need Mahomes, of course, but you don't need Mahomes. If you have Hurts and you have a good defensive line and a good offensive line, you can win the Super Bowl. So if you have a guy like Anthony Richardson, that's what I've always said, Chad, and I'm not saying this is a disrespect to Anthony Richardson. We don't need Anthony Richardson to be Pat Mahomes. If Anthony Richardson is in the gym and working hard and continues to develop into Pat Mahomes, awesome, chat. And I'll delete all the times I doubted him and say I told you so. If you notice a bunch of episodes go missing, it's probably from copyright because they keep taking down our SNL 50 episode, and every time we just like, okay, we'll cut that part out too. They're like, oh, here's another part. So I think we're almost done, chat. We'll just, I guess, keep putting it through the ringer until it finally gets stayed on there for good. But the full versions are on Spotify and Apple, if you guys haven't checked those live streams out as well too. But also, I think the edited versions are probably there's probably plenty there as well. So, what were we saying there, chat? Mahomes, Hurts, all these guys are winning, and all this stuff. But yeah, this is to, I guess, where we have it now. Mahomes, Hurts, Burrow, Allen. I can't even read my own rankings, chat. Mahomes, Hurts, Burrow, Lamar, Allen, Daniels, and C.J. Stroud as the top of the league for guys. And again, like Stroud, is that a little rich if we're going for this past season? Are there guys that had individual better seasons this year than Stroud? But, that would be really getting, I think, well, maybe like the next guy that we might bring up here would be, of course, in the mix from what he's capable of for okay, actually here, I was going back. I was looking at the master copy, chat. I was thinking of a guy, but there's a couple other names before we get to that player. So, but I guess we can bring him up anyways. Like we're saying, we were shuffling these rankings around. So, like, Herbert would be a guy that we go, okay, did he have a better season this year than C.J. Stroud? He definitely had a better regular season than C.J. Stroud. I guess Stroud, and that goes to what we're saying. Stroud won a playoff game, and Herbert, unfortunately, threw more picks in the playoff game he did than the entire regular season. So it's awesome that Herbert had a great regular season, and Herbert continues to solidify himself as just, one of the best young solid starters in the league. And I know there's a time we were saying he was just one of the best quarterbacks in the league, so maybe throwing solid in there is like, hey, why are we putting solid on pause? Well, hey, yo, Chad. But, why are we putting those kind of adjectives on Justin Herbert's descriptors when we're talking about his ability? But I know it's only 2 playoff games, but it's still 2 playoff games that kind of took disastrous turns. And he is going to be in a little bit of he needs to prove it in a big moment. And I know we're giving other guys like, Lamar and Allen, I guess, a little bit more of a benefit of the doubt than Herbert. But again, those guys have achieved more in the regular season, so it's not a hot take, I think. I know Herbert's like advanced analytics puts him right up there with those guys as a passer. I think PFF had him as the 4th quarterback in the league this past year. So is this a little bit lower again from those advanced stats? But from the playoffs and from a bigger picture standpoint, he's going to have some clutch moments where we can buy in as fans and be like, okay, we trust Herbert at the end of these games to be able to secure these wins when we need him to. And I know he's been, the Chargers organization, the coaching staff, the people around him maybe have gotten some of the excuses over the past couple of years for why they're not able to close out these games. And make no mistake, if they're not able to do it, like, Harbaugh is going to get looked at as well too. It's not going to be like, well, let's totally shift the blame to Herbert. But if it's 2 coaching staffs and Harbaugh as well too, we know what Harbaugh is as a coach. And again, if Harbaugh takes a turn and now we're just in a new phase of Harbaugh's career, then it is what it is. But Harbaugh turned that team around right away too, so it's not like we don't expect Harbaugh to continue to make that rest of that roster better. But now we are kind of like, okay, is Herbert not a problem? And this is look at where he's at in the rankings. He's going to be in the top, 10 top portion of the league. Like, this is not is Justin Herbert the problem? But is like we're saying, is Justin Herbert a guy that can elevate the team around him like we thought maybe, or is he a guy that is going to be dependent on the roster around him? So you bring in a guy like Harbaugh. That's a perfect coach to build that roster out around him. And could Herbert ascend these rankings? Absolutely, chat. Absolutely. But if we have to go in the moment after what we saw from this playoffs, we just have to put Herbert a little bit lower. And to be honest, I know if we're doing if we're really looking and doing the future stuff, we're going, okay, who do you want for the next 10 years to be your quarterback? Then Herbert is probably going to be about this spot on this list. Like, all these guys are, pretty much peers in the league. So age is not really a factor here for the decade plus long, whatever, in comparison to these guys. I guess Mahomes, maybe starts going to late 30s, but even still, you're going 7 years of Mahomes is probably still going to, you're setting the over-under at least 1.5, right, for Super Bowls? Thinking 2. Maybe you just set the over-under at 2. I don't, you can't set it at 2.5 because 3 would be really rich in 7 years. But, you're still thinking a Super Bowl or 2 more for Mahomes as well in the mix for the intermediate future for his career. And then maybe he tacks one on at the end as well too, sort of later phase Mahomes. I don't know if he jumps teams like Brady did, or if the Chiefs just have this random burst of new energy around him and pause. But, they just have this transformation at the end of his career if they have like a little dip or whatever. I don't know how it plays out. But if we're going really long term, then this makes a lot of sense for these guys here. But if we are, again, sticking to maybe like the next 4 to 5, a little bit more shorter term, a little bit more right now, but still you got to factor in some of the years, I still, at this point, might take Stafford over Herbert. And that's where we start pushing in with the age, where we go, okay, maybe 2 years I get Stafford for this coming season. And if we go back and are replaying this season as well too, like we are in this exercise, then that makes it a little bit easier to put Stafford above Herbert as well. And maybe even, again, if we're just going back and replaying this season, I would probably rather have had Herbert over Stroud. To be honest, like, my list for this season, guys, might have been like retroactively, now what we've seen from Hurts. It might be like Mahomes, Hurts, Stafford, and then Daniels, or Daniels, then Stafford, or whatever. But, and, Burrow and those guys, of course, right in the mix as well, too. But, if we're trying to win right away, Stafford is still in this mix. And could he still give you could we get 3 years of Stafford, chat? 3 years of Stafford versus 5 years of Herbert? I feel like the over-under is probably 1 Super Bowl for both of those guys. And do I have confidence in Stafford getting it in like 3 years versus Herbert in 5? It's really close, chat. And like we're saying, Herbert's just going to have to prove it to us in the playoffs a little bit. And Stafford has a ring. Stafford has continued to show that if you can get him into the playoffs healthy, and maybe not even healthy, but if he can limp into the playoffs and at least perform, he's going to be clutch. He's going to have big moments. And he did have some costly plays in that loss to the Lions as well too. Or did they play the Lions? They played the Eagles, chat? Maybe they wanted to play the Lions because the Lions lost to the Commanders. That's what I'm thinking. But, that game was not crazy if I remember correctly. Should we actually just go back and look? Since we're here, chat. Since we got it pulled up in front of us. That last game for Stafford against Philly. Yeah, 22-28. 59% completion percentage. Stafford can have a little bit of those hit or miss games for sure. But no picks. 2 touchdowns. 2 fumbles for our guy Stafford, costly, and 5 sacks. But that's just what we saw from that Philly defensive line, continuing to be a menace. So maybe we just re-rank our rank. All these guys played better against Philly than Mahomes did, Chad. It's just unfortunate for Chiefs fans. But if I have to try to win a Super Bowl, over the next couple of years, if I'm a GM, my gut still tells me to take Stafford and still take the clutch performer and still try to build a team around him. And not to doubt Herbert at all. He's the next, basically the next guy on the list. Let me just double check what I was looking at here earlier, chat. Oh, okay. I did also have Jared Goff in front of Herbert again for the next 4 or 5. If we start going 10 years or whatever, but I don't like doing like 10 years. I get it for longevity of a player's career, but from like a practical team building standpoint, maybe it's just the modern day. And football is a little different than NBA as well too, especially the quarterback position. Is quarterback, a high level quarterback, is that the most reliable 10-year starter at any team? Like probably, but again, when we start dipping down to this next tier of guys, and what level are they even going to play at as well too? Because can you just expect every guy to be a top guy for a decade? I mean, that's just a long time, Chad. It's a long time, and it's not a disrespect to anybody, but not everybody's going to be a top-level quarterback if they ascend to that every year for 10 years. I mean, literally look at Hurts as well, too. Like, we have Hurts in the rankings number 2 this year. Did they miss the playoffs last year or lose in that first round to Tampa Bay or whatever and just had that disastrous end of the season? And he would have been down a little bit on the ranking. And it's not a season that you're going to look back at and go, Jalen Hurts ran the league that year. I mean, maybe we look at that and go, maybe Jalen Hurts obviously wasn't the problem for the team. And maybe he was playing well and, had problematic moments. But as a bigger picture problem, obviously, he got him a Super Bowl eventually. But it's not that Jalen Hurts had a decade-long run of dominance. And again, that's the retroactive thing. If you replay the career, if you build a good team around him that year, who knows what happens. But is Jalen Hurts going to go on a 10-year run now? Even Jaden Daniels going to be a decade-long run of being a dominant quarterback. It's a long bet, and I think it's better to kind of go, and you just want to at least reevaluate every 4 to 5 years and see where you're at. Probably every year as well, but of course, every couple of years, every half decade. You're not waiting 10 years to go, okay, now we're looking at what the league looked like. What are the updates? We've had our guy for a decade. Now what's going on? The league is shifting more than that, and if you're lucky to have a guy that is there for 10 years and you're paying him and it's locked in and you're still able to build contending teams around him, then that's awesome. But that's, of course, only 2 or 3 or whatever guys in the league. So, Goff is, of course, an interesting example. Him and Stafford, of course, both traded for each other. I guess all these guys are one-team guys for now. So it'd be, end of their careers, halfway through their careers. Goff-wise, are they not playing up to standard? Is Stroud have a couple more years of, oh, wait, Stroud's not turning into the guy we thought, and we have a chance to move up in the draft, get a guy, not to sell low on Stroud, but it's like, hey, are we going to go in different directions, sell high on a guy that we, I'm just throwing out a scenario for a guy, for what can happen. But Goff has shown himself to be a performer in the playoffs, and yes, he's had down moments like Herbert, but he's also had more up moments. So that's why I want to also clarify, it's that combo snapshot versus future, because Herbert's right in the mix here over Stafford and over Goff, but I just need to see a little bit more playoff performances from Herbert to show that he can actually be trusted. Because I know that if these are my 3 options, Stafford, Goff, and Herbert, I know Goff can play well in a playoff game. And I guess, again, he had a disastrous half against Washington, and I think at the end of that game as well too, he was throwing picks. It's not good, but it's not like we can say that again. Herbert has those other games to even hang his hat on at this point. The problem is, and you say it's only 2 games, but I feel like this might be like a Sam point, but that is the problem. It's only 2 games. He's losing those first 2 playoff games. He's not having the chance to extend that playoff career. There's a reason there's not a body of work in the playoffs to look at. So that's a part of it. Jared Goff has a body of work in the playoffs. He's a quarterback on good teams. He wins games in the playoffs. He's been to a Super Bowl. And that is something we have to give him credit for. And he's still kind of in that peakish age range where for the next, 3, 4, 5 years, could we see Jared Goff being a really, really good quarterback? Absolutely. Could we see Justin Herbert overtaking these guys? Absolutely. But if we're making this playoff rankings after this season, I feel very confident. Well, I guess I would take Stafford and appear very confident about it. I would make sure to make all the right quotes and say all the right things, and we would definitely hype up our guys. Like, yeah, we got one of the 3 Super Bowl winning quarterbacks that still matters. I guess just to take a side shot at Rodgers for some reason, but we have a guy that matters, a Super Bowl winner. We have pedigree. I'd make sure to build our guy up, but I'd be making sure that Herbert's not just burning us on the other end from pause for not picking him. But I feel like we do have to give Goff credit as well too. He was awesome in the regular season, and Herbert was awesome and efficient in the regular season, but Goff was able to have an aggressiveness with him as well too, where I think Herbert had that at times, but just maybe wasn't consistently as aggressive as some of the other quarterbacks as well too. So, I mean, we're really cruising here, chat. We'll see how many of these player positions we get through, but let me switch this game over because this Mavs-Warriors game did end a second ago. So we've got, I guess, is the other game even started up here, chat? Let me see. What do we got next? We got a little ESPN run all night, I think. But it is Grizzlies-Cavs up next. Okay, ooh, that is kind of a fun one, chat. I'm not going to lie. That one could be a good game. Yeah, okay, so let's switch this over real quick, and then we will continue working our way slowly through the player rankings, chat. Stay tuned, lock in, get some popcorn on this break. It's going to be a second. Okay, chat. This is not good. I think the Sunday lunch that we had earlier is starting to work its way through the old intestines, and we are headed toward a colossal situation. It's just what it is. So, stay tuned. We will see what happens. Are we ready for the first like 20-minute break in Remington Pod history? Imagine, chat, just a live bathroom break. That would be crazy. Obviously not a live bathroom break, but just the fact we'd have to take a break that crazy. Because I guess spoiler alert. Make no mistake. It's gonna be a second if it happens, chat. It's what it is. Am I a man of luxury? Yes, but you know how it is as well too, chat. Sometimes it's a process, not a struggle, but sometimes it is a process. So update corner, I guess, as we're not even to that point of the rankings. We're not even to the poopy part of the rankings yet, chat. These are all still good quarterbacks. Yikes! But who knows what happens here? Is this just gonna have to be, I guess, with a little offense defense, chat, two-parter? Who knows? The new Sunday series is just us going to be ranking one positional grouping every week. Who knows, chat? I guess we'll just see what happens. At least, we got a quarterback list here to work through, and then after that, we'll see what happens. But Goff over Herbert, the more I stare at that, I do kind of want to flip that one. But I still am buying in Goff stock for the next couple of years. But we can't be, out on Herbert. I mean, he's still obviously a good quarterback. He's just had a couple of bad playoff games. I think he's still a little bit more mobile than Goff as well, too. I think that's really been a problem in some of these playoff losses and moments where his ability to extend plays is really kind of caught up to him at times. Herbert at least has got a little bit of that element in his game. Obviously we're not talking about some of these other guys, but he's moving around out there. So this feels a little bit better, chat. I do feel a little bit more comfortable with this order. But I don't know if this continues with the hot takey stretch. But again, if we're sticking to kind of next couple of years / if we replay this past year, what about Baker Mayfield, chat? Do I give you the next couple to just kind of show you this range? So I had Baker Mayfield here. Then I had Dak Prescott after Baker. Then I had Jordan Love. And then Brock Purdy, chat. Okay. So Mayfield, Prescott, Love, and Purdy. And the immediate name that jumps off the list, I think that we could move up a couple of spots, would be Jordan Love. I think Jordan Love over... Just people would be saying, you got to move Love up over Prescott. And Love... I guess he's kind of 50-50 now on playoff performances and whether or not we trust him in big moments, because he was awesome against Prescott and the Cowboys, and then this year in the playoffs, not really so great. And this past season just didn't seem like they quite hit the highs that he was able to hit last year, and that's always a little bit concerning as well too. First year after getting a massive contract extension. But Baker, chat, Baker's just an MFer right now, chat. He is just a tough dude. He will hang in these games. He's crazy and chaotic, but all these guys kind of are the same thing. There is a element to their game where there's just going to be some plays in there where you're like, what's happening? Purdy's going to have a couple of passes over a game and over a course of the season that are just going to be right there for the defense. We know Prescott's floating up those interceptions. So, yeah, Mayfield might be a little bit pick heavy at times, but his ability to overcome his mistakes, that might be the thing, honestly, that separates him over these guys, is just the mental toughness of Baker Mayfield. And to be honest with you, chat, me personally, if we have to go back and... this might be the one that if we go back and replay this season just individually, Baker might even be a couple more spots up on this list. I think, like I said, I'm moving Stafford up. So, poor Stroud. Goff, we could argue move him up, but again, he wasn't stellar in the playoffs. Neither was Mayfield, I guess, but Mayfield, they did almost take down Detroit, right? That was that first Detroit game. And I guess Detroit, did they end up pulling away there at the end as well, too? That game might have got out of hand. But let's go back and we need to update the Baker Mayfield playoff. What happened to Chad? But all of these guys were, these are not playoff locks by any means with Prescott and Jordan Love. So I feel like if we're just going with the crazy chaos. Oh, that's right. Washington. It was Tampa versus Washington. 15 for 18, 2 touchdowns, chat. I mean, Mayfield kind of did his job. Mayfield was kind of cooking in that game. Mayfield was kind of awesome. And if we looked at the season, he was 4,500 yards. Yeah, 41 touchdowns, 16 picks. But again, 41 to 16 is not like a terrible ratio. 2.8, it's a little bit heavy for the interception percentage for sure. Not ideal, but I mean, Anthony Richardson's up in the, I guess 2.8. He's almost in the threes, chat. That's not very great. But again, his confidence, I trust Baker Mayfield to not be bothered in a big moment, maybe more than these other guys. And again, I might move him up over Goff. I might move him up over Herbert. And if we're replaying this past season, I might move him up over Stroud as well. I know Stroud threw less picks than Mayfield and had a little bit even more efficient, even though if he was up for what we consider Stroud as an efficient quarterback. But again, the peaks of Mayfield, not that the peaks of Stroud aren't great, but is it a pause? But Mayfield this year was just a really tough competitor, constantly clutch in big moments, had drives to, again, overcome his own mistakes, but to just carry the team on his back. Baker was one of the best, just let me just make like 3 or 4 just plays in a row that you're like, Baker is carrying this team. Baker is honestly one of the best carry the team quarterbacks in the league. I know there's like a weird, like with the NBA, with the MVP, we can do like a weird thing in conversations where we start going like, okay, we know who like the actual top guys are, but like, oh, what about this guy, like sneaky MVP candidate here, like down on this team? Like Wemby would have been a guy in that conversation for sure, where, you know, if he's able to play this year, it's like, yeah, I mean, the Spurs obviously aren't like a great team. They're not winning games. And like maybe you can point fingers at Wembanyama in big moment and like certain reasons for that. Again, it's part of the developmental cycle, not as a criticism, but just as we're talking like MVP of the league, like his MVP value is going to be a little bit higher than maybe, and not even his player ranking, because of course Wemby's going to be super high now in the player rankings as well too. But you know, is he like a better basketball player right now than Brunson? Like, of course you'd rather, you know, in the bigger picture, you're taking Wemby over Brunson still at this point, I think. But you know, it's like one game, one series right now, building your team again, win the finals this year. Like Brunson, is he like a more complete player? Like those type of guys, chat, you know, in that, you know, second tier of like all NBA type mix. Like Baker Mayfield is like that second tier, like Pro Bowl level quarterback who could be in the MVP conversation, even though you're not going to rank him like directly above these guys. Like, again, is he more talented than a guy like Herbert? Like, who knows, chat? But his just ability to focus and lock in at the end of these games and to overcome any sort of mental obstacles is maybe a thing that Herbert struggles with as well too. And I know, and I guess we can't speak at that for, you know, a guy's mindset, but just as like a guess for maybe what it might be. But I trust Mayfield's mentality just about as much as, and that's a crazy thing to say as well too about Mayfield for a guy that was, you know, a little bit of a loose cannon as well too at Oakland. Like Mayfield was one of those guys. It's not, was Mayfield ever, I mean, of course he was actually like, you know, a little chaotic. He was, you know, making motions at the fans and talking trash and doing stuff as well too. But of course, you know, shout out Colin Cowherd, but does it become, we're almost like memeing Mayfield's persona because of the takes that are out, you know, like Cowherd's takes become a little bit so absurd that we start caricaturizing Mayfield in that kind of way. You know, does that kind of happen with some of these guys? I almost wonder. And Mayfield, was he ever actually, like, I'd have to go back and look, like, what were the actual reports of, like, you know, him in the locker room, like, did it ever get to those type of moments? But now it's like Mayfield, I mean, you know, he might still get like a technical or whatever these days. You know, he'll get a personal contact penalty maybe for yelling at a ref or something, who knows? But he's a leader. I think he's a guy kind of that guys can rally around as well too. So I'm all in on Baker, especially this past year. Baker was one of the fun guys to watch this past year. So we got to give him his due credit as well too, chat. Love, I mean, Prescott does give you that regular season consistency. I know there's a playoff thing, but like I was saying, it's not like Love has a great playoff resume to throw over Prescott at this point. It would be, I guess he just has the head-to-head pause. And if we are throwing in the future stuff, I think Prescott's not like old. I mean, he's going to be 30, so he's not is maybe is he going to be his athletic peak? Probably not. Love would still have those athletic peak years as well too to match, the capability with the peak years. But Prescott could enter that sort of IQ stage as well. And we know he's one of the, when he's seeing everything right, chat, like the good IQ moments from Prescott are definitely good IQ moments for sure. And he can branch out in a way, you hope that maybe some of these other guys can. But obviously we just know his trustworthy in some of these big moments. Like him versus Purdy. Like Purdy has been in a Super Bowl, but Prescott in the Shanahan system, I mean, Purdy was clutch in the playoffs for him when they needed him to be last year for sure. I mean, has he had bigger playoff moments than Prescott? I mean, we could argue that, but I still think maybe Prescott's a little bit more capable to produce in a good system. And again, like, is Purdy going to carry a team to the Super Bowl? Probably not. So to say that, well, is Prescott going to do that? Like, I don't think that's a fair argument at this point in the list. So now it's, for ranking production in a blank system, I trust Prescott with that more. If we put Prescott directly into Purdy's system, I kind of think that it's a similar result for the Niners. And, to be honest, like, I don't know, Chad, that's pretty interesting. A Prescott-Shanahan combination. Two guys that maybe have that similar weakness of not being able to get over the hump, pause. But that's a lot of talent between that combo to make a strong push for something. So I would still think that Prescott, with the IQ that he has at this stage in his career, is in this mix here for, 10 to early teens for quarterback. Is he pushing top 10 quarterback in the league? Absolutely. Absolutely. Prescott's definitely in the mix. I mean, what are we looking here at, chat? 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, so 12, 13, Purdy at 14. And Purdy, I feel like this is fair for Purdy. Again, this is with Purdy making a contract, with the decision there looming. Who knows if we're, again, maybe there's a trade value version of this ranking where at one point Purdy was way higher. And now with a contract, like, does that even make Purdy, do we push him down the list a little bit? But Purdy is a good quarterback. Like, again, maybe he needed Shanahan to develop him in the system to kind of help him get to where he's at. But Purdy's a solid starting level quarterback. How great can he be in certain moments is still, I think, up for question, of course. But in a regular season environment, week to week, I mean, we haven't gotten to a guy like Sam Darnold yet as well, too, Chad. Like, if we're making contract decisions here, I think I'm definitely more confident in Purdy than Darnold. And I know, we had conversations at one point in the season last year with how Darnold was playing. It's like, well, what if they had made the ultimate decision and said, hey, you know what? Sam Darnold's going to be the starting quarterback going into next season and not Brock Purdy. And we're making this just big pivot, and we think this is the right move. But with what we saw from Darnold as well, too, in the playoffs, like in the last half of the season, I think maybe you could still have confidence in some guys like Purdy above him. But also, if you look at Darnold's numbers, like, his bad performances were just also against, like, the Rams and the Lions. So, like, these two, like, pretty good teams, pretty good opponents. Not obviously what you want to see happen for a top guy in the league, but if it's like these outlier teams in a way, the Rams maybe not an outlier team as well. The Lions, of course, not an outlier team in the playoffs. But, these still, like, really competitive, really, really good teams. These are the only ones that Darnold is struggling against. Then, we have to give Darnold credit for being a consistent quarterback amongst the rest of the league. But if we're throwing the future stuff into here as well, too, Chad, and if we're going a little bit blank slate, I almost wonder when we start bringing up Drake May in this conversation. So I guess we said Purdy was 14, so this would be 15. So we'd have Drake May in the top half of the league already as one of the better quarterbacks in the mix. But this is another guy, future stuff, we're talking about guys that could transcend a system. I mean, we already saw Drake May have more success than we thought in a Patriots offense and a Patriots roster that did not give him a lot of support. And a Patriots, like, system as well, too, that didn't seem like it was really that great around him. I know it's one thing when the roster is struggling and you go, oh, he doesn't have the help that maybe he should. His receivers, his line, these guys aren't making play. Like, kind of with, in a way, like, not to compare them to the Chiefs, obviously, but an example of it, like when you see Mahomes and you see games like that where you're like, oh, they need to improve in a couple of spots and then they'll be good. But when the system is bad around you and you're like, oh, the plays that they're calling for Drake May are bad, and the ideas and the concepts that they're running, like, this is just not a functional scheme. And the fact that he's still able to produce out of that, like, that is some special stuff, chat. And if we're doing that, like, big term, long term rankings, and we get to, like, have a blank slate and start fresh with everybody this upcoming season, Drake May, you know, he goes right into that mix, I think, with right after Stroud versus, you know, as much as we love Stafford and Herbert, and like we were saying, with as much as we've grown fond of Baker Mayfield's game, the upside of Drake May is in serious contention now for special quarterbacks. Because again, is it, you know, individually, is he going to be the best quarterback in the league at some point? I'm not writing it off by any means. Drake May definitely could be. But could he be in that Josh Allen? I mean, look, right now we are having Josh Allen as the 4th best quarterback in the league that we'd have. And I still think it's totally fair that a guy like him could have won the MVP this year, even with us saying, like, as much as that might seem contradictory, I think it's fair to say that at certain points, there's, like, you know, Jalen Hurts regular season versus Josh Allen regular season. It's like, okay, I mean, Josh Allen probably had a better regular season, but if we throw the playoffs into it and we look at the big step back and take a look at the bigger picture, you know, what Jalen Hurts was able to accomplish is going to be able to move him up a list over a couple of these guys. So I think Drake May is, I guess I would still say Mahomes would be a tier 1 quarterback by himself, kind of, just because of the legacy still that he's been able to establish. But to me, tier 2 would be Hurts through Stroud. So Hurts, Burrow, Lamar, Josh Allen, Jaden Daniels, and CJ Stroud. And if we're talking upside going forward, I think Drake May is a tier 2 quarterback for sure. And that's, I mean, is that going to be the hot take? Like, he's not a tier 1? I mean, to me, that is, again, basically tier 1 upside, with Mahomes being still, with 3 Super Bowls and 5 appearances, just being forgotten about in this whole thing for, you know, what could happen with the Chiefs going forward, and the Mahomes legacy of it all, like, totally being forgotten that he's just dominated the league in a way that, to start his career, that we just haven't seen before. I think it's still totally fair to have him off by himself, but those other guys in that mix, I think Drake May is right there with them for, and that becomes a little different, like, you know, the next season and a half, 2 seasons, as Drake May continues to step forward as a quarterback, because he is a, you know, if we're looking at him and Jaden Daniels, same draft class, he is, you know, what, like 2.5, 3 years younger than Jaden Daniels. So is he going to need that many seasons to get up to par and right away? And it's like, well, Jaden Daniels is there right now. And again, totally fair. The age thing makes sense. We're not blaming Drake May for needing that time to catch up, maybe, for where Jaden Daniels is able to impact the game right now. But again, if we're being realistic about trying to win a Super Bowl over the next couple of years, is Drake May the 15th best quarterback in the league that we want? But to be honest, again, putting Drake May on a good team, and again, it's put any quarterback on the Eagles, they're probably going to be better than the bad team that they were on, obviously. But are they able to have success in those moments where you need a guy to step up, you need him to make big plays, you need him to be clutch, even if it's not directly in the 4th quarter as well? It's moments of keeping the drive alive and extending plays. And, you know, if you have dominant performance, yes, maybe it's just first down just every time, you know, Drake May pitch the ball to Saquon Barkley. Like, literally, we saw Saquon Barkley do, you know, was that against Washington, chat? Or was that in the, I forget, you know, had that first run of, or no, in the Super Bowl they did contain him pretty well, but against Washington, he just immediately had that touchdown run. Like, if that's just what it was for the whole season, of course, it kind of was that, but, you know, if it's even a step up and Drake May just doesn't have to do anything, you know, or any quarterback has to do anything, like, I get it, chat, but is a quarterback able to lift a good roster? Because, again, like we're saying, propelling a bad roster to mid-roster versus being able to captain a good roster. Could Drake May captain a good roster over these next couple of years? I think he showed some real, mature, win right now stuff where there's going to be pass-to-pass decision-making that's going to be rough, but there is a gamer mentality. There's a ability to extend plays with his legs as well, too. That just, like, realistically, you know, he can pick up a first down on 3rd down with his legs and keep a drive alive that way, absolutely. but he can make an aggressive throw. He's not going to be afraid to attempt things. Seems like he's already starting to get a good grasp of some of the progression stuff, and just as a passer as well too. And maybe again, not Jaden Daniels levels all the way for being polished up, but I mean, if we're taking Drake May versus Brock Purdy, you know, is Drake May like throwing that many more crazy passes than Brock Purdy? Like, can we look up bad throw percentage here real quick, chat? Let me see if I remember even how to. Sometimes these advanced stats, we're clicking around a second trying to navigate into this stuff, but maybe because I guess total bad throws, you know, Drake May missed some games, so did Purdy, I guess, but they have it in here for percentages. And I'm assuming, you know, as a rookie, it's not going to be surprising if the bad throws that he does make are way worse compared to, you know, if Purdy's able to refine some of the incompletions as well too, if there's such a thing, you know. But let's see here. I guess they have the on target as well too, which can both be like, you know, inverses of each other. But bad throw percentage, shout out to Geno Smith, had the best in a good way bad throw percentage in the league. Yes, the Allen, Stroud, Love, you know, a little chaotic with some of the passes. We're not, and I forgot, how could we even forget to mention as well too, obviously the best quarterback in the league, Anthony Richardson, right? Tier 1 quarterback. Redo the tiers, chat. What were we saying? Drake May's a tier 3 quarterback because that Hurts through Drake May tier is tier 3. Mahomes is tier 2, and Anthony Richardson's actually tier 1. So there we go. We got our guy out of the way, right? Anthony Richardson. We believe still, brother. As long as you're in the gym, as long as the work ethic and the grind pause is still there, as long as it is both the want to be great and then again the want to win, the ability to go, I know that I need to continue to progress my game to get better so this team can win, but as my game progresses, what are the things that I'm doing right now as well too that continue to help this team to win in the game to game, in the week to week? And you know, we believe in your ability to get better as a quarterback, so you know, we're putting you at the top of the ranking and just saying, hey brother, this is where we see the potential going at some point, and not worrying about where you stack up in the rest of the league right now, because it doesn't matter where Anthony Richardson is at after this season. You know, it doesn't matter, chat. It doesn't matter. Anthony Richardson, the season happened. There were great moments in the season as well too. There were great things to look back on. I think the low points, like maybe some of the subbing out, like some of that stuff, like, you know, going back to academics, were we doing some academics level gymnastics to defend Anthony Richardson after there has to be who is a better, I mean, I guess better Glazer is crazy, chat, but who are the best Glazers in the industry right now? You got academics and Drake, shout out, but JJ Redick and LeBron, and you know, these all make sense. You know, LeBron is JJ Redick's coach. You know, Drake and academics, they have a working relationship. Like, I mean, make no mistake, if I'm sure we'd be, you know, defending whichever rapper was, and you know, we took us a while to, you know, look at the battle and say, hey, maybe Cole is not favorable in the battle. I guess, you know, it didn't take a while. It was kind of instantly. Kendrick came out and dominated right away. It was ugly from the start, chat. But I mean, you know, we did flip our opinion on some stuff, so I guess we can't say that we'll stick to our guys. But in a way, is that a bad thing or a good thing? Like, yes, we can sit here and glaze Kendrick for winning the battle, but also, you know, maybe we should we were a Cole guy, you know, before, chat. Not say that we weren't a Kendrick guy. It's just like, if we had to do the power ranking, we would have had a Cole, Kendrick, Drake for the big three for our personal rotation, and now it's flipped. It is what it is, at least in terms of the minutes played. I know the emotional, again, connection, it's like the big three, all those guys, you know, there's an attachment there, that the collective of that it's all, you know, it's like, it's all the same love. But as the rotational minutes stand right now, you know, I get we're glazing Kendrick, but like we're saying, I guess we can switch our opinion if we need to. I guess, you know, whenever the Kendrick time happens, if that ever needs to happen. It never will, because we know the music's going to age timeless, and don't know why Kendrick, as well too as an artist, just wouldn't, whatever phases he continues to evolve into, wouldn't be excellent for what they are. But anyways, what were we talking about, chat? Anthony Richardson, defending Anthony Richardson. Yeah, Anthony Richardson, just keep working hard, brother. Just because we're not like slotting in a certain spot in the ranking doesn't mean Doesn't mean anything. The future is the only thing that matters for the Colts right now. And right now, Anthony Richardson, you are the future. You're the quarterback at the Indianapolis Colts. And we believe, brother. Don't listen to Mac. If McAfee says stuff, it just doesn't. It's just guys talking. We're not even criticizing McAfee. We're just saying like, other Colts fans that. Because make no mistake, Anthony Richardson, he may not hear this, but he may hear like some other Colts fans say some critical things. So just don't worry about it. It's like just guys talking, just things that you're gonna hear, just in the moment emotions. It's not a grasp of what it is or what it can be either. It's just all passion. So it's like love and hate. It's all the same thing, right, chat? I don't know if that's the right phrase, but I guess they say love and hate is both. It's passion, right? It's all passion. So if you hear fans saying certain things, just passion. It's just because they want the best for you. But either way, what were we over here doing, chat? Pause. We were looking for somebody's bad throw percentage. Purdy, and we were looking for Drake May. Did Drake May register? So Drake May's at 16.4, and Purdy is at 14.1. So Purdy is definitely a little bit, down from Drake May, but it's not so crazy. Again, literally Drake May in year one as well too. And Drake May maybe even having a little bit more, not even a little bit, but some more abilities to extend plays than Purdy. So we have to give Purdy some respect for the work he's put in, of course, up until this point. But I am okay with having Drake May as like a, right now, favorably top half of the league type guy. And if we're putting him on the Patriots in this situation going forward, it's tough. They got a lot of rebuilding to do. So will they be able to build a competitive roster where he's competing with these guys in the near future? I don't know, but he himself might be able to carry his team in the mix. Chat. Like, who knows? We see these guys take a step back in year two, but if he takes a step up in year one, that could be a wild card team. That could be a divisional round team. A division-winning team, Not that the roster could be that, but you spend a little bit of money, you get a good draft pick, and Drake May just has a ball-out year. Pause. They could win 10. There's a 10-game, 9-game possibility where that would also involve Buffalo taking a step back in the regular season with Josh Allen. We just haven't seen that happen. So if they win 11 to 12 games or whatever in the regular season, again, even with like, this Buffalo team is not still cream of the crop pause for, AFC contending teams or whatever. I guess it's still going to be right in the mix again next year. So, but let's say they are a 9-win and Pats are a 10-win team next year. I think, I don't know. I could see them both. Maybe it would be like a 10-win team, and then the Pats have like they split in the regular season, and the Pats have like a tiebreaker in some situation. I could see that, I guess, version of the timeline playing out if there's like a 10-win tiebreak situation. But 11-12 would maybe be a little risky to start betting on for the Pats. But I could see Drake May definitely overachieving next year. A lot of Drake May stock for sure. But then again, like we're saying, there is some chaoticness to him. It's not all clean and polished up, and not like there are probably things that can be exposed as well too in year two. But again, like kind of Mayfield, he's got that gutsiness, but he can extend plays as well outside the pocket and down the field the way that, and like running down the field the way that Mayfield can. And Mayfield's kind of sneaky fast. I mean, I guess we do have to give Mayfield credit as a runner, but Drake May's also, a little more athletically peak of his powers as well. And I don't know, again, if it kind of shows our bias toward new guys when it can happen. But the rest of the guys that you start looking at here, I guess we haven't brought up Sam Darnold yet for guys that, had awesome seasons this past year. Let's pull up these leaders here real quick, chat. And see if we missed any of like the... Oh, I guess Geno... But are we putting, like, Geno in the mix as well, too? Like, shout out to Geno. I guess we do have to put Geno in the mix at some point. But everybody else, I feel like we've kind of mentioned or is about to be mentioned at this point. So, the next, like, tier of guys here would be... let me see how I had this written down. So, I guess... I had Geno kind of in an off tier of like, not off the list, but just like, if you're redrafting and starting a franchise, is Geno like, he's kind of a guy you look at the fantasy draft and you go, okay, I've waited too long to take a quarterback, but Geno Smith is still there, and you're like, I've gotten bailed out by waiting too long by the fact that Geno's still there, but it's not what you necessarily game plan going in for, is to build your franchise around Geno Smith. But again, he would be in the mix at this point for starting level quarterback, so we would have to throw him in there. And again, it's the point we get to. I think he's not too far off from being ranked, but we can throw Kyler Murray's name in here, and we can throw Trevor Lawrence's name in here as well, especially if we're at least giving some hope for the future as well. Not to say that hope is like all that these guys have for the future, but do we throw Bo Nix in here as well? Young guy, had a really solid season in Denver and proved that he can, again, have some success when the quarterback and the system around him is at least decent. And I guess the thing would be, who knows how much, better he'll continue to get. But that thing is, that's always the question for any guy. So just because, we might assume like a guy like Jaden Daniels is just going to be in the gym, like working harder than Bo Nix, like, who knows? Bo Nix could be the guy that's in the gym in the off season, like, doing the most work, and just whatever the like efficiency of work into like actual productivity and translation as well too, like however you're able to calculate that, like work, like time spent into improvement, like maybe Bo Nix is able to make that biggest jump in the off season. But just because it's not locked in because of draft status or perception or whatever, doesn't mean it's off the table. But it just is always a thing with those type of guys, and we know the history of the league as well too with how careers can, like, you see Purdy, it's like, is there a leveling out that can happen with some of these guys? But then again, you see Jordan Love, it's like, is there a leveling out that can happen with some of these guys? Do we need to actually, now that we're looking at it, now that we're saying it, do we need to remind ourselves, flip Jordan Love? I'm going to be honest, I'm going to stand on business. I'm not putting Jordan Love over Baker Mayfield right now. Baker Mayfield might completely tank next year, and Love might emerge back as one of the top guys. Could totally see it happening. I mean, again, literally one spot above Jordan Love, so it's not too far off, but I am not willing to make that one move. I will stand committed to Baker Mayfield at this spot in the list at this point, chat. It's just what it is. But if you're telling me, Kyler Murray, Trevor Lawrence, Bo Nix, and I guess, we're going to throw Sam Darnold, and, do we throw Darnold and Geno over Bo Nix as well too? Have they a little more established? It is what it is. We can rearrange this stuff in a second here. But if this is our next tier of guys after Drake May, what is, again, I know that these guys have played more regular season games, but have these guys proven themselves more than Drake May? And have they ascended situations maybe even more than Drake May had this past year? I know that, again, that's maybe just giving too much stock for winning like a couple of games and having a couple of good drives. But, and Trevor Lawrence has had good moments. And Trevor Lawrence had speaking of Justin Herbert, like Trevor Lawrence is the one that made that playoff comeback and had a big playoff win as well too. So I've definitely had stock in Trevor Lawrence, and I can't be too far out on Trevor Lawrence if the Duval guy is able to like turn him around, and able to get him back in the mix as a top talent quarterback. He still has the tools. It's not like he's physically deteriorated or anything, but he just hasn't quite shown the growth as a player yet, And, if Drake May was on, again, if we're flipping situations, I don't know if Trevor Lawrence is a situation make or break guy at this point, which is a sad thing to say about Trevor Lawrence. Like, we thought he would be one of those generational type guys, and he can still absolutely be, like we're absolutely saying, Trevor Lawrence doesn't need to even make the Hall of Fame to win a Super Bowl. All this stuff is arbitrary, and, you just need to do the best you can each season, and the goal is to just win the Super Bowl, and Trevor Lawrence could be a Super Bowl winning quarterback. We're not saying that, but I think Drake May had some even comparative bright spots, again, for what he was expected and it's always due to expectations, but even as the expectations adjusted, like for what he was accomplishing, for what was around him, I think it's just more impressive than the rest of these guys. Like Sam Darnold and Geno Smith both needed a lot of time and really good situations to prove good quarterbacks, and it's a great thing to have a solid starting quarterback and a guy that can get you that win week to week. But if I can have my choice going forward, probably going to take Drake May. Kyler Murray is an interesting one because he still had those moments last year as a scrambler where you're like, oh, the athleticism is still there and he can still make plays. But again, he's still kind of hit or miss. So I guess it's just the blank slate of Drake May that is carrying the day at this point. So if we're being inconsistent earlier, but I don't feel like we have been because, again, we put Daniels over Stroud. So that's a blank slate guy who, again, just hasn't quite had the moments to have the down moments that Stroud has had. And we put Stafford over Herbert, which is Herbert you could say is blank slate, but again, Herbert's had a playoff struggle in there and one playoff struggle and Herbert's out. But Jordan Love as well too, over Mayfield, he's had his moments as well. So I feel like it's very fair right now to just say that if the Cardinals were trying to win more games next year and their options were Drake May and Kyler Murray, I think they probably would go Drake May. And that's not even just a contract. And see, that's a tough, it's a close call. You think about it, you have a meeting, you do all that stuff, Chinese food, whatever. But, get the takeout. But I think you might settle on Drake May by the end of that conversation. Same with Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence versus Kyler is tough too. Do we have to flip Lawrence and Kyler? I guess they're both number 1 overall picks. Kyler's got like 2 years on Lawrence, so it's hard to make an age argument. 2 years, is that really worth, passing up on an opportunity if it's really that serious? If we really think that Kyler is better in all these things, but it's like, well, Lawrence has got 2 years. Are the 2 years enough, to make that big of a difference? Probably not at this point. Again, splitting the difference, they're 1 spot each. So Bo Nix again, I guess we're going blank slate. Bo Nix over Darnold and over Geno. But I just want to be a little optimistic, I guess, for Bo Nix and our Broncos fans and not put him as far down the list as possible. Because, to be honest, again, individually with Broncos fans, maybe we could make an argument here that Bo Nix could move up. Maybe we could move Drake May up. To be honest, chat, Drake May or Dak Prescott? Oh, yikes. Is that hot takey? If you want to win the Super Bowl next year, we need to consult the advanced analytics. I know Prescott, and I guess his season was cut short as well, too. I guess he's probably back in the starting lineup. New year. Probably not sticking with Cooper Rush as the lead guy. But he didn't have a full season under his belt. 30th. Uh-oh. Prescott's spot in the list might be a triple. It's just what it is. Let's see where they had Drake May as a rookie. Ooh, 29th. They had him 1 spot above Prescott in the advanced analytics. Shout out PFF. 3 points better on the total grade. A 70 on his grade for Drake May. Wow. Did that just seal the deal, chat? I mean, do the advanced stats say that Drake May played better than Dak Prescott? I mean, I feel like some people are going to be like, yeah, that's not a hot take. But again, when we're arguing about the 12th versus the 16th best quarterback in the league, I think in those kind of spots, I'm less willing to move a younger guy up. As weird as that sounds. If the guy is it's okay, Hurts, we got to move him up over Burrow and Josh Allen. He's ascended, he's doing his thing. But it's oh, come on. Can we just give Dak Prescott, let him hold on to his number 10 spot for as long as possible, The guy will come in and take it as soon as possible. At 10, it's his peak, Gonna bump him off the peak at 10. It is what it is. But, and then now we see, do we just keep moving him up the list, chat? Drake May over Jordan Love. I definitely sense a pull in the future for the Rem and Sam pod, so if this isn't a good excuse to subscribe to the feed, that future Dak Prescott, Drake May, Baker Mayfield, Jordan Love, whoever, that's probably going to be the 4, to be honest. That seems like an interesting 4. But let's see what they're saying as well, too. Who is saying? Jordan Love, chat. Who we still can have faith in. I still am kind of interested in the Packers as a turnaround team for next year. Jordan Love, a little bit of a step up. in performance. Still not top end of the league like you'd want, but you see, 20th to 29th for Drake May. And that's out of, 42 quarterbacks. So 29th is, out of 32. A yikes, but, still a little bit more in the middle than not. But again, Baker is solid. Like, I'm almost curious of flipping Baker over Goff and just saying, would Baker have almost made the Super Bowl 2 years ago, and had been in the Super Bowl in the Rams at some point? Who knows? But would he have been able to power the lines a little bit this year? Again, who knows? But Jordan Love's got the contract. I guess if we get really hot takey later on, we can always move him up again. We're not limited on our number of moves, are we? IT, do we have a moves limit? Is this like a game show? We have to rank these guys, but can only change the ranking so many times? That doesn't sound like an awesome game show, but maybe there's a way to make it, to up the tension and the anticipation. IT, go do a little brainstorming session and see what you can come up with. But that still puts Drake, I guess we're talking about him at the top half. He's not quite near in top 10 yet either. But that does move Prescott down the list a little bit, unfortunately for our guy. I want to defend Prescott, but again, we got to be unbiased. But Purdy, Kyler, Lawrence, it's like, okay, man, now we're in the range of the list. We're not feeling too bad. Again, we're going to start moving Lawrence up now over Prescott, but we got to pay respects what respects are. But what are respects even for, not making a conference championship game? Let's check Lawrence here real quick. Pretty soon we're just going to have to look up all these guys' rankings. It just is what it is. But it's a good number to look at. What is the old PFF committee saying? A snapshot of the group. So at least all these guys are close in grading. So that's good to know that, at least we might be somewhat accurate in the list at least in the advanced analytics way. Somehow the advanced analytics and the vibes are lining up right now, chat. I don't know how it's working out. Kyler, do we just... I told you, we're just committing. We're just going to see where all these guys are at. Not every single one of them. But Kyler, 11th. Yeah, he had some high points this year, chat. He definitely had some peak moments, for sure. I think maybe there was... Was there even some Kyler MVP buzz? I mean, am I remembering? I may have even said that myself, chat. Maybe we give Kyler the respect. Kyler over Purdy and Prescott? And then back over Drake May? Screw it, chat. PFF. They're making up our mind right now. It is what it is. Kyler over Dak Prescott. Kyler over Brock Purdy. But not over Drake May yet. Even if that's a hot take, I'll stand by it. But we got Prescott, Purdy, Bo Nix behind Trevor Lawrence, Sam Darnold, and Geno Smith. Shout out. I mean, these are all still starters as well, too. These are guys you feel good about in a regular season game to get you a win as well. Sam Darnold, I think going forward, can still be a very, very good starting level quarterback. I don't think just because you're wondering about paychecks and, long-term future doesn't mean for next year he can't be a quality starter. But here we go, chat. Maybe we might actually get a good NBA game now as well. Cavs versus Grizzlies. The other two games, like we said, Warriors-Mavs blowout. Celtics-Knicks before that had an interesting couple moments where the Knicks, I don't know, there was some effort moments where the Knicks, where there was like some closeouts and we're like, what's going on? And then they turned it on and kind of charged back a little bit, but then the Celtics would, go on their run. So at the end of the day, the Celtics dominated, and you kind of have to talk yourselves into, again, I guess just the Knicks not competing, I guess, if you're a Knicks fan, but is what it is. Maybe they're just not up to par with the Celtics. Jaren Jackson swallowing up an Okoro layup attempt. Wow, a massive block and seeming like he's on pace to go back-to-back for Defensive Player of the Year now with Wembanyama out with an injury, but looks like Okoro also got fouled by Ja on that play, so he'll get free throws. But, Geno over Sam Darnold, chat? I feel like... For some reason, I don't know why my gut's telling me we would take Geno, but it's both the same thing, right? We're getting wild card exits at the end of the day from either of these guys. So are there any major players that we're missing right now? Any guys we need to mention as well too? Like we said, Anthony Richardson, his 11, he didn't qualify due to him being number 1 on the list. But Huntley, do we put Huntley? Oh, Penix, chat. Where would we rank Penix? Obviously, if we're replaying this past season, he's still a little bit of a work in progress. He's probably not going to, get you a playoff win this year. Maybe, but maybe if he plays the full season, who knows? If he plays the full season, he could win a wild card game. I guess I wouldn't be totally shocked, but that would probably be the max upside for what I would at least have for expectations for a Michael Penix rookie season after the retroactive time machine expectations for what we saw in that little glimpse at the end of the year. So unfortunately, he probably goes over Bo Nix. Does he go over Lawrence? Like there's a world where Penix is up there. I don't know if we put him over Drake May just because of this own class or Kyler. But if you wanted to take Penix over Lawrence, Purdy, or Prescott, I could definitely see that, chat. Can we slide in Michael Penix right here as an optimistic version of the list? I can get behind this. Pause. For sure. Also, I feel like I kind of want to move Lawrence over Purdy as well. That might be a yikes, but if we flipped Lawrence and Purdy, he would definitely be better under Shanahan, but he might make that Niners team a little bit better. Who knows? Again, Purdy's been clutch in the playoffs, so this is tough seeing him this low. I hate to rank it like this. I almost want to flip that back just because I start seeing it as when I see Lawrence over Purdy, I see the Purdy playoff resume and him actually having winning success there, going to a Super Bowl and just going, well, at least Trevor Lawrence hasn't done that yet. But when I flip him back and put Purdy over Lawrence, I see Lawrence as the former number 1 overall pick and the super high upside guys. So I guess this might be the conflicted bipolar portion of the ranking. And after these guys, chat, like these are all the guys that I feel like, okay, playoff game or regular season game, you can feel good that they're going to give you production in the regular season and that they can run an offense competently. But after this list of guys, give me Jameis. Jameis is the guy. Jameis Winston. You're telling me, Russell Wilson, chat. Who would you guys rather have, Russell Wilson or Jameis Winston? Speaking of Wilson, Justin Fields. 2 Pittsburgh quarterbacks. Would we rather have Justin Fields? Would you rather have Aaron Rodgers or Jameis Winston? That one's not even a joke, chat. That one's just real. Aaron Rodgers or Jameis Winston? Who would you rather have right now? We're taking the pastor, chat. We're taking the evangelist. Give us Jameis Winston. Any of these guys. Rudolph, Dalton, Drew Lock, Cooper Rush, Flacco, Mac Jones, Gardner Minshew, Daniel Jones, Derek Carr. That's another one. Give me Jameis Winston over Derek Carr any day of the week, chat. That might actually be a bad take. Like, that might actually get me fired as a GM. Because Derek Carr might actually be able to win you, like, a couple of games. He's not going to win you 8 games, but he might be able to win you 4 games, 6 games. What did they win this year? Like 6 games. Derek Carr will win you 6 games. Jameis Winston, he may win you 4, but they're going to be fun games, chat. They're going to be fun games. Jameis's entertainment value is up there. I guess Tua, we have to pay respect to Tua. But unfortunately, maybe the injuries have kind of caught up to him as well, too. So while I want to believe that he can still get back to Tua levels, you just don't know, chat. And he did lead the league in completion percentage this year as well, too. So you got to respect it. But Tagovailoa, I'm looking at it, chat, and I can't even remember how to spell it. Do we get it? Ola. Here we go. We're missing an A. Ooh, that looks right, chat. Tua Tagovailoa, and then Jameis, and then the hodgepodge of what do you do if this guy's your starting quarterback? Russell Wilson, Justin Fields. Oh, Bryce Young. I forgot about Bryce Young. Ooh, you know what, chat? Bryce Young versus Brock Purdy? I feel like that wouldn't even have been a conversation at one point, but now I have to think about it. Bryce Young over Bo Nix? Yikes, chat. Let's put Bryce Young at least over Geno Smith and Sam Darnold for now. And that's not a diss at all. This is, I believe in Bryce Young. Look at this. We can scroll up and see the whole list, and Bryce Young is still there. Like, that's great, chat. You wouldn't have said that about Bryce Young before. He would have been in the scroll down portion of the list. That's for sure. Oh, Kirk Cousins? I know we already had Penix on the list, but Cousins is still in the mix maybe for who knows. So we'll just throw him around. Oh, yo, throw him around is crazy, but we'll throw him on the list anyways and keep track of him. Oh, Caleb Williams? The young guys, chat. Slipping my mind. At least the Caleb Williams trade. Bryce Young and Caleb Williams both not getting mentioned. And I know it's a rough year for Caleb, Mr. Williams. But if we went back and replayed this year, there's going to be those growing pains. He may not be able to propel the team that much in year one. But you still have to believe in him going forward as well. I would still have hope in a good system, a blank slate idea that we can build some stuff around him. Penix over Kyler, chat? Do we just do the... It'd be crazy to do the run of all three of the rookie quarterbacks kind of back to back to back like that with Drake... And just in a shuffled order with Drake May, Penix, and Caleb Williams. Because that would definitely be like, okay, I can tell what he likes in the rank. Like, he's valuing just the newness of the new guys, which is... I mean, I'm, admitting it as well, too. Like, yeah, for sure. I mean, that gives him a boost, I guess, in my mind. But... either way, like, that is important to say that Caleb Williams, does he have the potential to be at this point maybe more than a player like Prescott? It just is what it is, chat. And it has to be in consideration for the conversation. So, yeah, is Prescott maybe a better chance to give you more next season? Absolutely. But also, so does Caleb Williams with his growth potential pause in year two. And now is Penix over Prescott and Lawrence a little rich? But screw it. I like it for the takes. Let's do it. I don't think being pro Penix is going to necessarily age poorly. And I mean, what are we talking about, chat? Like being pro Penix with him in the middle of the league. Our hot take is Penix is the 16th best quarterback in the league or wherever at. It's like, okay, maybe he's not getting too extreme over here. But who are we saying? Caleb Williams, Brock Purdy, Bo Nix. You still got to take him over Nix, still over Purdy. Yeah, I think we got to do it, chat. I think if I'm staying true to myself, this makes sense. So shout out to Kyler Murray for just, I guess, hanging with the kids right here, chat. Pause. For some reason, inserting himself into this little rookie quarterback run here, but that looks about right for where I would judge these guys. And again, I hope I'm being consistent with mixing that snapshot of this season versus the future. Because Caleb Williams, I mean, definitely had one of the worst quarterback seasons. So I guess instantly we need to go back and just make sure that is correct. But again, was like Trevor Lawrence cooking? I guess they're probably going to give Caleb Williams like the yellow. He's definitely got a yellow grade for sure. If Caleb Williams got like a, like the hybrid sort of yellowy green grade, I would be thrilled. Whoa, 67.1. That was better than I thought. That puts him right in that mix with Prescott and all these other guys and Lawrence. Okay, chat. I know some of these advanced stats with the bad throws were looking tough. Just get a quick success percentage metric here. Yeah, I mean, you see him behind Andy Dalton. Right next to Drew Lock is bad. Tough. But again, Stroud is not too far off this mix. So a lot of this was maybe what Stroud was dealing with. I saw a stat that said, like, what Mahomes dealt with in the Super Bowl is basically what Stroud was putting up with in the regular season. So there you go. I mean, would we rather have Stroud than Mahomes? But, we still believe that Stroud is probably just being a little bit more affected by the situation than normal. So, did I mention, I think I wrote down Rodgers already. Minshew, we know he's not in the mix. And Rodgers, I think they said he's out as a starter in New York as well, too. So, is he in the mix for starters? Deshaun Watson? We can't even write him down, chat. Like, who just knows what's going to happen at that spot? So, I guess we can't put the rookies in here because we know the rookies for this upcoming draft, guys like the potential of Shador and Cam Ward and Quinn, whoever else is in the mix. Jackson Dart, I guess. I'm telling you right now, Jackson Dart over Tua in my mind. Just, again, the newness thing of it. But either way, yeah, Jameis is the last guy I want, like, set in stone as a starter. If I can't have any of these guys, then give me Jameis, and, we'll go down with the ship, chat. But, do we want to spend 3 hours on each positional group? I don't know if that'll be the efficient use of our evening, chat. So I guess, do we need to rebrand this one? This is just best quarterbacks in the league, working our way through the quarterback rankings, but the quarterbacks is going to be the most in-depth of the conversation around these guys anyways. So the fact that it ended up kind of being its own thing is not surprising at all. And again, we didn't do a top 10 or a top 5. Like, we went through a good amount of names here. So, I guess will the offensive lineman episode, maybe that one will be a day off. I think we'll probably, rip through some of the other position groups in a little bit of a quicker way. But was I forgetting any of the teams here? Like we said, the Giants. I guess let's write the teams down here and then see if we end up with 32 different spots here. So these guys are not really going to be ranked. I guess we can man up and do a little bit of math here at the end. But we've got the Giants as just a team. And I guess Cousins is a double quarterback spot as well, too. Same with the Steelers with Wilson and Fields. And I guess I don't know what the individual contract, where those guys are at returning. Free agency, the offseason, it's about to happen. So some movement might happen as well, too. And maybe some situation changes. Who knows? Like, what if Lawrence gets traded? I doubt that'll happen. But what if one of these guys is on the move and now all of a sudden it's like, hey, better spot, more favorable stop? Obviously, maybe we should have been having that confidence in him outside of the situation anyways, but sometimes you need to see him in a new light for we need a makeover, a Trevor Lawrence makeover, for us to get him cooking back up on this list a little bit. Because this list is not reflective of his talent as well, too. He's as talented as these guys. We know that, but just some of the consistency hasn't been there with Lawrence. We know Browns are in the mix. Titans are in the mix for teams that we left off. And the Raiders as well, too. And I guess we got to put the Colts in here. Not because we need a quarterback, but just because, no, chat. Did we just put Anthony Richardson in the top of the list? Maybe it's like a subconscious working it into the, what do they call it, subliminal messaging. If we just put some subliminal messaging up, then maybe we can get Anthony Richardson just straight up as the number 1 quarterback in the league, chat. If it's like Focus, when they prep that guy to cash in on that bet, spoiler alert, if we just put like lists subconsciously everywhere where just we see number 1, Anthony Richardson, just like 5,000 passing yards just subconsciously throughout the, and I guess he doesn't need 5,000 passing yards, but if we put like 13 wins just subconsciously everywhere, divisional champs everywhere, just number 1 lists everywhere, maybe it'll work into a subconscious that Anthony Richardson's like the best quarterback in the league. And hopefully you guys are staying tuned as well, too. Maybe that's a little Easter egg of things to come here on the REMINGTOM Pod. Pause. You guys are going to want to stay subscribed because there may be some more Margot Robbie content in the future outside of just that drop. But for teams, we did throw Bryce Young in there. Yeah, the Saints are in the mix as well. So I think we pretty much got everybody in here. If we're just going to commit to doing the rankings, chat, we might as well at this point just make sure that we've got everybody's situation ranked. Okay, so we've got 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33. Okay, yeah, so we got plenty of guys here on the list. Probably too many guys, to be honest. But there we go, chat. Anthony Richardson 1, Mahomes 2, Jalen Hurts 3. Okay, quick. Undo that so we're not aggregated. So this is Anthony Richardson in a tier of his own, chat, because he's a special player. Shout out Anthony Richardson. The best is yet to come for the Colts franchise guy as of us heading into the offseason 2025. But yeah, we got what? Mahomes, Hurts, Burrow, Lamar, Allen as the top 5. And you know what? I do feel good about seeing Hurts at the number 1-2 spot. It really does feel like he went up there and grabbed it and earned it. And his trustworthiness in those moments is definitely there, chat. I feel like after the way he's played in these postseasons, we definitely have to give him his respect. So, yeah, Hurts, Burrow, Lamar. Let's just real quick flip Lamar and Burrow and just see how that looks. But Burrow, he still got that playoff win versus Mahomes, chat. So, Burrow, Mahomes, Hurts, Burrow, Lamar, Allen, top 5. Daniels, Stroud, Stafford, Herbert, Goff, and Mayfield as your next. I guess Goff is your next 5 right there. So Goff's the number 10 quarterback in the league. Mayfield, Love, Drake May, Kyler Murray, and Michael Penix. Some unproven guys here making our way up in the list. And then we go Caleb Williams, Dak Prescott, Trevor Lawrence, Brock Purdy, Bo Nix, Bryce Young, Geno Smith, Sam Darnold, Tua, Jameis Winston, and then good luck with the rest of the league right there. But I guess we did get a little inconsistent with future versus whatever versus new slate versus this guy has some pedigree. But whatever way you want to formulate this list, it makes sense to me. So I guess, should we just... Because if we were going back and replaying this season, like, would we actually take... If we were replaying the season and getting those couple of seasons, then yeah, I would take Caleb Williams over Dak Prescott because you're not getting much different result from Prescott. You know, you're getting an injury as well too. But is the totality of that season much more, you know, does it all work together to be a better season than Caleb Williams? The mentality of Bears fans about Caleb Williams, is it better than Dak Prescott? Who knows? It's all the same for those guys for me. So I still would bet Caleb Williams' upside over those guys, and assuming this season is going to be similar results for all those guys. Like maybe Purdy for this year and Knicks could ascend for, replayed versions of the season. But I feel like this makes a lot of sense. I feel like this is a decent QB list. Maybe like Stafford and Stroud, we flip them, but I feel like it's all in the same range, chat. So yeah, comment I guess and let us know as well too what you guys are thinking for these playoff positional rankings, and follow us as well too on socials, the REMINGTOM Pod. We're on Instagram, of course, TikTok. You can comment and subscribe and DM and give us your thoughts. We're always willing to hear from the community. It's not even just because we want to hear from it is because we want to hear from the community, but it's the input of you guys. We want to continue to not make the show gets better because it's more input, it's more voices, it's more people, and it's a more well-informed opinion. I think, it is fun to hear a unique voice and a unique take on things. Absolutely. And I think there are times when, we think that, hey, like, put some respect on Anthony Davis. Why is nobody, it's not even like, it's just the moments when it's like, I guess we happen to just be, it's like, why are we the only ones saying that we like an Anthony Davis? And again, it's not saying that the Mavs won the trade. It's just like, whatever, Chad. It's still on our mind. I still go back and rewatch those Anthony Davis like opening 6 minutes about as much as I rewatch the Kendrick Super Bowl halftime show. It's like equal energy, equal living up to the hype, equal lit, chat. The Anthony Davis, I'm here. It's a fun moment. It's a great moment, and it's a guy like really living up to a moment. Like you think about it. When is the last like guy living up to a moment? Not it's happened all the time. It happens every night when guys achieve and do great things, but you think about like a real stage with stakes in like a major way. If he goes out there and really does not live up to par, the Mavs fans are going to be really critical, and there's going to be some real concern about what they just did for the franchise. And there still is, obviously, but at least they have, and he's injured as well too, so that doesn't help, but at least they have that performance to go. That's what he can give us, potentially. Pause at that spot on this team with this roster around him. And it's not just the points he scored, chat. He was playmaking. He had like a post where they doubled him back in that possession and dumped down to Gafford. He had like a block at one point and then a couple dribbles up the court, found PJ Washington cutting up half court, and then PJ Washington just dribbles in for the lane. Like, playmaking up the court. Not quite Jokic passing level, but it's still like, I mean, the IQ, same result. You get an assist. So, his ability to, like, do the other things as well, too, if we see those expand, would be awesome. But, you know, like, the playoffs, the last 2 rounds of the playoffs were not, like, the most fun. And what big major stakes moments have we had in the regular season up until this point? It's kind of been those Doncic, the expectations of what we've seen from Doncic and Davis. And Davis had his moment, and now Doncic had his moment as well, too, the last night. But that'll do it for us. Like I said, I guess we'll just be back doing more player rankings in the future. Who knows if it'll be the rest of the offense, I'm assuming maybe offense, defense. We'll see how we'll split it up, you know, in the future for the rest of this stuff. But that was fun, guys. Thanks for kicking back and relaxing with us a little Sunday afternoon player rankings to get you guys through the day and to, you know, we have a good time hanging out with you guys and ranking these players. So hopefully you guys had a good time going through the quarterbacks with us as well, too. But like I said, stay tuned to the socials and stay tuned to the feed. We'll be back later this week. And thank you guys for